Journalism in Newsroom, the second edition, which was talking about AI tools, right? The third and fourth edition, which looked into GIS and mapping technologies. The fourth edition was even an hackathon on the 2025 budget, bringing people, participants, beyond online trainings that we do. We brought participants down to Abuja, right? And everybody was in one room, and all we were just doing was trying to gather or generate ideas from the 2025 budget. So this is fifth edition, and we decided to told the way of solution journalism, seeing that, okay, solution journalism has been one of the evolving aspects of journalism in recent decades, right? And seeing that a lot of newsrooms are already shifting their narrative from how they report stories into seeing that these stories can also be written from the solution-focused or developmental-focused point of view. So is there a way that data also play this role, right, to help journalists rethink their ideologies on how they see stories, right? And that's why we brought down this training. And is there also a role that data plays in all these aspects, right? That's one of the things or reasons we decided to organize this training. So just to run you through, we're going to be having two beautiful. I decided to use the word beautiful because they are two persons I respect so much in the field. Personally, I'd worked with them, and part of my growth in journalism, in the journalism space, I would not always tell that full story without also including them in, and that's beyond. That's because the way they had contributed, even to myself and several other journalists, or even to the solution journalism space, right, has been epic, right? So we're going to be having Chibika Alagbaso, if I really pronounce that word well. The Director of Media Programs in Nigerian Health Watch, and Mr. Innocent, the Managing Director and Business Development Lead of Prime Progress, to talk to us about solution journalism. So what they're going to be doing essentially is, beyond talking to us about solution journalism and how and telling us the whole aspects of what it entails to write a solution-driven report. The essence of the training is to also see at one point when they have had to edit stories, they have had to work with stories, especially that are related to data. How did they work with that particular story, right? So they're going to be giving us their own practical aspect or editorial aspects or point of view, right, from working with solution journalists or working on solution journalism stories. So it's going to be a very packed section. Then towards the end, we're going to have me come to just give you an overview of, data and data journalism. And we're going to also introduce some aspect of what we do in DataFight, where my colleague Paul Akinwumi will also come up to take that. So it's going to be a long 3-hour section, and I hope you will enjoy it. Let's just quickly just put that out there that we are available on all our social media platforms. We have Twitter, we have LinkedIn, we have Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and also our website. Like I said before, one of the things that we do at DataFight Academy is so much that we can resource you with data, right? So we speak to different genres of journalism, different aspects of digital writing and handling the digital space. So you can always reach out to us on our website. Every of these videos that we're going to be doing are also available on our YouTube. So they're going to be available in a week's time on our YouTube. If you want to follow or check out some of the previous classes, especially the Data Story Lab classes that we've held, please go on the YouTube channel. Just go to DataFight Academy and you're free to watch them. And you can always obviously hashtag on every of the teachings that you learned today and every of the things you need. Write to us or probably mail us at DataFight Academy or send us a DM at any of our social media handle, and we're going to be quick to respond to you. So without wasting too much of our time, can we just welcome Mr. Chibike up, and he can just start the training from his end. Chibuike, please confirm that you can start the training from your end and please. Right.
Hi, Kennedy. Yes, I am good on this end. Just double checking. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I think if I can, so everybody can.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. Really excited to be here to see our lovely faces and names this Saturday morning. The chat is not as busy as I've been able to put put messages in the chat, or is this restricted? Because these trainings, as much as possible, yes, they're called trainings, but as much as possible, I like to refer them as just facilitating engagement. So as much as possible, it's not a one-way street, just to dumb down things. But I know I have limited time, but I would appreciate it, if we also engage, because there's a lot we can learn from each other. Uh, so please, if you haven't done the intro, please use the chat to share your thoughts, use the chat to drop comments. I have it on the site, so whatever you drop, I am going to see it and respond to it. So thanks again to the team at Data Fight Academy for making this happen and continue to support journalists. And in order to do this work, it's very important that we continue learning. Things are always emerging, finding ways to also connect different skill sets, spaces. Okay, I'm still waiting. Maybe I'll put a prize for the first person
So
to.
I'm going to see if there's any restriction from my end. If
Okay,
people
yeah,
cannot, then I'll speak to my
just
colleague who is also managing so that we can just sort that out.
yeah. Thank you so much. So that note, I'll just. So also to double check, I have just 30 minutes for this, right? Okay, I have 30 minutes.
Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
what
Use
what will
10
happen
minutes.
when what will happen when my time is up? Someone will kick me out.
No, I'll send you a message.
I hope I'll see. Let me see if I can put up my chat. Okay. Yeah. Sorry. See. All right. So I hope we're all as excited as I am, and also the team at Data Fight Foundation and Data Fight Academy for putting this together. I hope to share, but also learn. Like emphasizing. So now we'll type something in the chat, unless there's a problem with the chat. So how many of us are familiar with solution journalism? I know we're talking about the intersection with data journalism and solution journalism, but to be good to know. So I guess people can speak so that you'll be able to manage time. But please in the chat, are you familiar with solution journalism? Yes, I've done a social story. I've done a training, but I haven't done a story. Put that in the chat, please. So I don't want to just go through. Okay, are you sure there's no problem with the chat? Is there a restriction or something?
Oh, there's no restriction. If there is, I think I have removed it. Yeah, I think I have removed it.
Okay.
Problem. So people can actually chat.
Okay. At least Mr. Joshua has confirmed it. I think he sent it to me directly, not to everyone in the group.
Yeah,
Okay,
so he sent it.
yes. Yeah, I've seen this. At least we're sure it's working. So yeah, he is. Thank you so much, Mr. Joshua. Any other? We are here. Aha, the messages are coming in now. So were you shy? You were shy, waiting for the first person. Thanks for breaking the ice, Joshua. So yeah, Rosemary is familiar with it. Theophilus is familiar with it. Mona is familiar with it. Thank you. So that makes our work easy and also consider that we have very limited time for for this. But essentially, it's that framework for those who are not everyone in the chat has said something. But for those who are not, just for their interest, it's just that framework um, um, of journalism that encourages us, encourages journalists to go beyond talking about problems to also look into what's working, right? And like I said, it's encouraging. So it's not advising them or it's not advocating to ignore the issues, right? Because those issues are there, as long as we are as long as we are alive, there will always be problems. Like they say in Nigeria, problem not the finish, right? But it's it's essentially how we approach this, the reporting, because we don't want to be the platform or the journalist or the storyteller that um, people come to your platform, they don't feel a sense of hope. It's always a sense of despair or problems all the time, right? And of course, as some of us may also know, there's also data or evidence that showing that people are avoiding the news as a result of, when we tend to, talk about problems a lot. So yeah, that's essentially why we encourage solution journalism, and it has this really great framework that helps, tell those stories. You go beyond the problem. Of course, you have to talk about the problem. I've been in a situation where people say, "Oh, you're not talking about the problem. Are you saying ignore the problem?" No, by all means, you actually start the story with, you help your readers, your audiences understand the problem. So you clearly articulate it so they know what the problem is. But where you now stand out as someone who is applying the solution journalism framework is you are going beyond that problem to now say, this is what is being done about it, right? Which is a response. We are saying this is the evidence that this thing that is being done, at least it's having some result. It doesn't have to be perfect. Solution stories are not about perfect interventions or silver bullets, not at all. So, but at least there's some evidence of this is having an impact, or even not having an impact. Maybe it's not having the results expected. You also mentioned that in this pillar. That thing that they're doing to solve that problem, and there are lessons that others can learn, right? That's the insight pillar. We want because that's one great thing about solution story. And as you all will agree with me, if you keep talking about problems, it doesn't really help, right? Yes, you can, show wrongdoing, hold people accountable, get people arrested, depending on what the issue is. But always talking about that problem doesn't really help anyone. What becomes useful or constructive in that discourse is when you share what can help others respond. So imagine someone is having that same problem and you write about it. That's where your story begins to make a difference because someone can now say, "Oh, this is what's working. Maybe I can learn something from here to address this problem." So that's the insight that helps you do that. What's making this intervention work or not work, really, that others can learn from. And of course, you want to also discuss any limitations or challenges because solution stories are not um, they're not PR stories, right? You are examining an intervention so that you write it in a way that others can learn. I wanted this to be an activity, but limited time, and I don't know if some of us are shy to engage. But I wanted to, because again, I just did that overview for those who are not very familiar with it. But and now to connect it to what we're here to talk about, data. How do we use data? How do you bring in data in this, in this storytelling, in solution journalism focused on storytelling? And I wanted to ask this as, make it an exercise. How do you think data can come in those four pillars, the framework that I just mentioned here? Why is it coming back? So this framework, how do you think, maybe we could just take a few comments in the chat. Sure, I'm not sure we can able to speak, just to be able to. Let's see if people are able to jump off mic and speak. Also, you can let us know. Okay. But I just wanted to know your thoughts around these pillars. For those who are familiar with solution stories, and if you report it actively, because I know, of course, some of us are leaders here, so some of us are executives and editors, so maybe we don't report actively. But in reporting, telling solution stories, how do you think data can come in to help strengthen or consolidate these pillars. Any thoughts? The response pillar, how can data help in bring it out better? The evidence, the insights, limitations. Thoughts? Going one, going two. I didn't want it to be a lecture. I know it's a training session, but I wanted it to be as interactive as possible. Or if you're not sure, you can mention in the chat if you think you're not sure how data comes. If you want me to just talk all through, that's fine. I feel it will be more beneficial if we're getting perspective from different areas. Note takers. 1, 2, 3. Okay, thanks Joshua for breaking the ice again. So he says he believes data can strengthen. Oh, absolutely. Data can definitely help strengthen all of this because at the end of the day, solution journalism, okay, that's one slide I forgot to put. Solution journalism is evidence-based, right? It's rigorous process. It's not fluffy journalism, really. It's as difficult as, again, when we talk about solution journalism, I always like to emphasize it's not a different type of journalism, right? It's what those same ethics apply. You want to be factual, you want to be evidence-based, you want to be objective, you want to look into the data, you want to be critical about anything you are doing before you. So essentially, that's the same thing that applies to solution journalism. So it's not a different type of journalism that we're talking about, just an approach. Say, as we're reporting on problems, but also invest energy into reporting on what's working. Sorry about the background noise. Where you get when you're doing a second on a Saturday. Thanks, Abdulaziz. He says data can strengthen Soju by providing more factual evidence and analysis that will add depth to stories. Yes, very true. Absolutely. The response, we are talking about what someone is doing, right? What is the data? What is the proof that they're actually doing this thing? And data, yes, when we think of data, what immediately comes to mind is numbers. I'm sure for those that have been part of previous sessions, Ken mentioned this is in 5th edition. So I've gone through all of data analysis, some of the principles, creating pivot tables, calculating average, highest number, and all of those things. So it's the first thing that comes to mind. But essentially, if you're capturing picture to show that what these people say they are doing, they're actually doing, that is data, right? You are interviewing someone, getting quotes, that's data, that's qualitative data. So yeah, if you also need to speak, like I said, I really want this to be. Thanks for those that are coming up to put up messages in the chat. But I want it to really be interactive. So if you want to jump off mic, just indicate or maybe put it in the chat or request mic. I think if you request to speak, the admin paying the attention level to see it, so you can jump off mic, so we can learn from each other. Thanks for the comment. Say the data-driven solution story delivers more than just information. Exactly. Remember insights. You want to provide the information that someone can use. So I mentioned for response pillar, you want to show, right? In addition to telling, you want to also show. And one way to do that is with data, with proof. They are doing this. They invested so amount. This is, that's data that shows that this is what an organization, an individual, or even government is doing to address this particular problem. Evidence of impact, of course, evidence is data. You can't talk about evidence without talking of data, right? How many people were impacted by this intervention? 500 people, 50 people, 5 people. But it's also what I usually advise is always back up quantitative data, which is the numbers and the measurable stuff with qualitative data. Like how is it making people feel? How is it making a difference in their lives? How is it impacting their quality of life? that intervention, right? That's data. So data definitely helps strengthen that insight. What's the lesson here, right? Why did this intervention work? Why did it not work? Talk to experts. Do they have other examples of other people trying to address that same problem? What worked? What didn't work? Why is this particular intervention different? Why is it working? Why is it failing? All of that, that's data. Limitation, of course, what is not working, or what are there areas that can be further improved, right? Those are all areas that data can strengthen solutions to it. And back to what Joshua said earlier, it strengthens, all of this. It tells the story, makes the story stronger. So it's not just saying, hey, this organization do this amazing thing. It's like you're doing press release, you did this amazing thing, partner this. Where is the proof? Where is the data? But in all, we are here talking about essentially, I want to now focus or drill down further on how do you now use data to even find solution stories? Like this software is doing in that haystack. I don't know what he's looking for, but how do you use data to start surfacing these stories? Because that's one really great area that, apart from strengthening the pillars, helping you tell a good story, how can you use it to start finding great story ideas, right? Solutions focused story ideas, right? It's a good place to start looking. It helps, provides that a good place to start looking for solution stories, but it's not the entire story, right? And I'm sure you must have come across that in previous editions of this previous session, because you need to be critical of the data. You need to ask questions for you to start making sense of it. Because if you don't look at it critically or very well, it can also mislead. So yes, it's a good place to start. It can help you find solution stories. And it takes me to this concept of, okay, yeah, I just wanted to put this out. I think they use it not in the context of journalism, but I think something around business or audience research. But this takeaway sort of um, um, consolidated what I said about data, the importance to be critical and not just take it at face value, right? Because it may or may not tell the entire story. So yeah, this takeaway from basically the data alone isn't enough to tell the full story. So you can't just see the data and conclude. You have to ask questions, right, to understand it, ask the people who may understand the data better, get more context. Because that this context is really very important when trying to understand um, data. And thanks, Usman, for the comment. Data stories strengthen solution that are providing evidence context, exactly a measurable impact for the solutions that get the reporting more credible, transparent, and actionable. Absolutely, absolutely. So this takes me to this concept of positive deviance. I don't know how many, if we're familiar with it, you can just drop it in the chat. Uh, just say yes or no, or what you understand it to be. But this concept of positive deviance, helps you sort of start surfacing solutions focused to it. Because what it essentially does is it tells you, and this is I just did a quick search of it when I was preparing for this. This uh, a summary from Google. You know that thing where you search for something, they first give you their AI review before they want you to source it. But it clearly explains it too. That's why I took it. Because of course, I'm sure pay dimension we've done, there's been a section on AI. I'm sure you have to always verify because it can also mislead sometimes. But yeah, it's this concept of, so here it's treated as a concept, right? Um, but when you are looking at data, you can see you can see people who are deviating or outliers, outliers in a positive way, essentially. So that's essentially what what positive deviance is, right? So imagine all the states in Nigeria, they are complaining about let's say power, all the 36 states plus the FCT. I'm sure we also saw the news about the presidency say they're trying to, invest a 10 billion or the 10 million into solar, this thing, solar energy for the daylight. But anyway, so imagine you're looking at data that all the states in Nigeria that are complaining, they can't generate power, issues around power generation. And then looking at the data, you see a state that is different. So others are down here, right? And their number, their own is up here. So that's a positive deviance. They are deviating in a positive way. They are outliers in a positive way. Remember, I said it's a good place to start surfacing potential story idea. Yes, they are doing great, but then that's a place to start asking questions. So you don't make your whole conclusion because we've seen that and say, oh, these guys are amazing. Like they must be. The key thing is to, that interest, to pick your interest. Oh, they are doing something. Let me find out. Because you may be surprised and go there and notice that maybe it's wrong data, maybe it's misleading, maybe it's fabricated data or something, but it's a good place to start. This concept of solution positive deviance. So essentially, is this approach of solving problems. Remember, at the end of the day, even talking about solution journalism generally, or even the work that we do, essentially is to make the society a better place, right? So the stories we tell to hold people accountable, to amplify knowledge, disseminate knowledge for more people to know about a particular issue and how it is being addressed. It's essentially to solve problems, right? So that's one. Social journalism is just a tool in the different strategies. It's not the only way to do it, right? So it helps identify and learn from unusual successful behaviors. So you see, so people who are successful in spite of issues, within the community. So it's based on the idea that some individuals or groups, despite facing similar challenges, develop innovative strategies that yield better results, than their peers. So you see, data can help you see that, like at the first instance, oh, there's something here. Maybe let's now dig in further to find out that thing that is there. So the data won't tell you the whole story, like I said earlier. It just points you to start looking, to start asking questions. Maybe there is something here that I should be interested in, that my audiences may or may not be interested in, right? And again, it's not a new concept. This is I picked this up from UNICEF. As you can see here, they also explained it very well. And it's still around the whole idea around data. Data must speak. So again, this is how they define it or explain it. Positive deviance and then identify successful outliers to explore sustainable, scalable local solutions to complex problems. Right. So I put the link in the down there so you can look it up to get more detail. There's also a framework that they put somewhere um, down there. So yeah, so when you're thinking of solution journalism and data, what should come to mind is positive deviance. Who is deviating? But it's important to start with the data, like I said, and go from there. Start asking, why is this so? Why is this happening? Um, Again, this is another example I want to share evidence of solution using data to report more than just badness. I got it from data journalism as well. So if you look at this test, I highlighted a few areas and it's just to illustrate what I've been talking about. So this guy collected data from US CDC and published by Lancet. What does the data show? So you see, we're looking at positive deviance now. So generally, the data shows that the US is doing terribly when it comes to maternal deaths. Um, I'm surprised that Nigeria is not yet because I know we also have an issue around. See. But yeah, so the data at the first instance it shows, hey, in the US they're doing terribly, others are going down, but they are climbing up. So he could have gone further to point fingers and make blames. Again, problem focused journalism that doesn't really help. Yes, you bring out the issues, but when you keep doing it over and over, that's when it becomes it's not really helpful. It's important to start asking who is doing it better, how are they doing it, what kind of that's learn from it. So yeah, it could have gone further to start laying blame the government officials, identifying corruption, they're not using funds very well, and all of that. And for good reason, those are likely to be the cases. But he didn't stop there again to just leave readers with this grim news. So we are gonna die. I know that I don't know if you know that. I think it's a cartoon, where there's an issue and one character kept saying, "We're gonna die." So, but he turned the spotlight. So even in that data about US not doing well, when it comes to maternal mortality, looking at it state by state, you still notice that there are states doing well. So he turned the spotlight on the state of California. It's even though they've seen a rise, but then they are seeing a steep decline. And these are things that data you know, can help you see, at least at the first glance, when you create, let's say, a pivot table and you group numbers from highest to lowest or something like that. So it helps you see that. Then you can now start asking. So you now started asking why. Remember, I said data is not the full story, right? It helps you sort of gets you interested, then you now start asking why. So in the story, what did they now do, or what was he able to find out? He highlighted the strategies that California health officials took to uncover the reasons behind climbing death rates and pinpoint specific causes, as well as the steps they took to find the issues, also practical steps that they now took to fix the problems in hospitals across the states. So you see, his stories also showed that the fix for this tragic crime can be used elsewhere. So what California was doing can be adopted by other states. Again, I'm sure this is data that all of us use, or COVID-19, the whole situation around COVID-19. So looking at this data, at the first glance, you are already seeing something here, right? Africa did the best when it comes to reported COVID-19 cases. That's the first thing that will jump at you when you look at this. There are 9.6 million reported cases, and Europe has the highest at 281 million, right? Again, at the first instance, yay, this is amazing. But you see, they are deviating, they're positive deviant because others are so high, and we are just so little, right? And again, considering that we have even limited resources as most of countries in Africa and low and middle income countries, but still see what the figures are. But again, remember, it doesn't tell the entire story. So when you now start digging, oh, why did Africa do well? Which country specifically did well in Africa? How did they do it? Is this data even real? Could it be a case of maybe we are not measuring enough, or enough cases we are not reporting, right? It depends. I don't know what you will find, but it's when you start digging that you at the first instance you see that the data is already pointing you to the direction. If you're looking for who did well or who is really great with addressing infectious disease outbreaks or pandemic issues, this is where you should be looking. But you need to now find out the why, the strategies, how did they do it. This is another quick example. Again, so this, I can just say to share examples. This is something I've always loved and talk about, but because of sometimes maybe because of the space, how we work, we don't always have that luxury of trying to, dig in deep. But this story, for example, two of my colleagues did this a couple of years ago. It didn't actually start with that whole positive deviant idea to say, oh, who is doing well, but it can actually start with it. So imagine you're looking at enrollment data. Just that we also have that issue of data access, but I'm glad organizations like DataFight help with some of those issues, helping you find data to tell your stories. But imagine you're looking at data around enrollment, especially for people in the informal sector, which is usually a problem. And you see that all of the states in Nigeria, they are not doing so great, right? And Delta State, for example, they are doing great. Their enrollment numbers are high. So you see, they're already a positive deviant. Then you now start asking questions. How did they do it? How are they able to get enough people enrolled in health insurance, right? That's the focus of this story that my colleagues, like how they're able to get their citizens enrolled in health insurance. the strategies, the processes, and all of that, right? Like I said, I'm not sure it started for them with looking at data about how states are doing. But I don't really think that data is out there. We all know the data that National Health Insurance Agency puts out around enrollment of Nigerians, but like the disaggregated data by state, it's not readily available. But this is just to show you an example of how these stories can start, right? And there are so many examples of so many ways you can start asking questions like that. Who is doing it well? What are they doing? What can the data tell me about what people are doing to address problems? So I already used the maternal health example, for example, for the US. But imagine Nigeria, we have the National Demographic and Health Survey, right? It has the national data, it has the state by state data as well. And they measure so many things around mortality, things, school enrollment, so many issue areas. So imagine you look at states, all the states, in a particular, the last one should be, I think, 2018. No, there's another that's come out after 2018, the 2018 NBHS data. So imagine you look at the data and it's a good place to start asking questions. They also disaggregate according to geopolitical zone. So which zones are doing well. So data can just jump at you. You see it, but then you now start asking questions. Oh, it just sort of helps you form your hypothesis. Maybe this is what the state is doing to be so good, their numbers are so good around this particular issue. Then you can now go and start beginning and now start using all of the skills, of data journalism. Now bringing your data journalism toolkits, the analysis, the basic analysis that sure the team at Data Fight will be happy to put you through. So, but yeah, essentially that's in summary. I don't know how I'm doing with time. I forgot to set a timer. Then you do have time to get a few comments on this to get a sense of how people are, the different areas people are responding, and what data you think can help you start finding and also telling solution stories around this issue. So you can just put it in the chat and we think through it. But yeah, this should be my last slide. I'm happy to take any questions and also get your thoughts on this. So when you are looking for data for the bits you are reporting, you report on, or the issues you report on. Or maybe you can just tell us the bits, then we can.
So if you're interested in speaking, just use the indicator or probably put it in chat on those indicator. We're going to unmute you from here and allow you to just communicate.
How are we doing with time? How did I do rather?
Yeah, pretty good. I think we just have about like 10 minutes to round up.
Wait, so I used 20 minutes. I spoke for 20 minutes.
I was surprised.
Wow. And I was rushing. I thought I didn't have time. Okay, so that gives enough time for this. So and that still gives, I still have my 10 minutes for Q&A, right? Or you added everything together.
I've summed it up together.
Say again?
I've summed everything up together.
So nice. Okay, so I'm looking at the chat. I want to see what people think. If you have any questions, so we can just mix up everything. So we manage time very well. So what do you think so far? Any stories you've done? Or any issues that you report on, you're wondering how you can find data to look at to start surfacing potential solutions to their ideas.
While we still wait for people's comments, I'm probably just going to ask 2-3 questions that people have dropped that relates to probably what we spoke to on the why they were registering for the for this class. And while I just read it out, I'm just going to also drop it in the chat box. Number one is someone asks what is like the A to Z in implementing solution journalism, if solution focused journalism with a little or no risks to yourself or the team. And someone was asking something around data presentation and solution presentation, especially to um, digital media, audio, that's the TV, the radios, and the like. How do you corroborate that? Because it appears like anytime we talk about data journalism, the next thing everybody is looking out for is the old charts, the old infographics, and the likes. Then we talk about solution journalism, and everybody's just always eager to go through to writing. Nobody remembers that beyond writing, there's the TV or the radio person. I have had to personally I've had to teach data journalism to radio um, presenters, and it took me like 1 week to prepare each slide because I had to make sure that every references I was making was not down to print. So how do we corroborate this data solution journalism, especially for the TV and the radio guys? That's the
Yeah. Thanks. I think the TV is simpler. It's pretty straightforward because it's also visual, right? So you can show as you are telling the same way with prints. So the again, this is I didn't dwell so much on the whole visualization because that's like the core the data journalism part, which you guys are the experts at. I'm sure you probably handled it in previous sessions. But this is just leveraging that, leveraging that tool or skill set to complement solutions focused storytelling. Right. So, back to what I was saying, TV is visual. So whether you're using maybe YouTube, you're publishing it online, or it's actually like TV for broadcast, it's visual. So as you're telling the story, you are you are you can show as the person is viewing the content, you can show data, you can show, there these days there are really great ways of doing this. Think platforms like think Flourish or so can do like animated data. So you can show trends, for instance, how something has increased over time, like a timeline, a time series kind of thing. It was like this month, next month, how it kept growing or coming down, or maybe it's historical data that you're trying to show. So again, TV, it's straightforward as far as I can tell. For radio, remember I mentioned earlier that data, the first thing that comes to mind, even the person that has the question sort of alluded to it, or when you explain further, the person that comes to mind is numbers. And even the what I'm showing on my screen now, it's numbers, right? 9.6 million, 7.8 million. But the voice too, right? The audio is also data. These days of that tech has really made sense is you can transcribe data and make sense of it. People in social sciences, the data they collect for their research is audio. They do get audio, they transcribe it. That's qualitative data. They transcribe it and they try to make sense of it. So even for radio, I don't know the examples you shared, in the session you mentioned. It's the audio so rather than, so for example, you're going to tell story of, let's say you're telling a solution story on radio and it's about an intervention in a community. People tell solution stories with podcasts. That's a good thing with Soju. It's multimodal. You can use different formats to tell your solution stories. So rather than being the voice, right? Yes, you can, summarize things, do the narration and all, but it's very important to also bring in the voice of the person, the sources, right? The people who are delivering the intervention, the people who are benefiting from the intervention or participating in making that intervention um, possible. So that way, it's their voice. That is evidence. It's not made up. That is data that you're putting out to help people understand. And even the numbers too, that's data that you can put out. So it's now how you put it out, because listening is not easy. It's not the same as when you are reading or viewing it. So it's now to present it in a way that people can understand it without making it sort of just go over their heads. So yeah, it's those principles still apply. Again, remember what I also said, solution journalism is not a different type of journalism. I'm not saying, this is a different, it's still the same methodologies, right? The same ethics, the same principles that apply with the journalism that we all do, that you now use everything. You're following that framework to not focus on just. So what is the A to Z of implementing solutions for journalism with little to no risk to yourself or team? Again, I think the A to Z would be that pillar. Follow the pillar. It's like a formula. For those who are science students, you follow the formula. A plus B will give you this. No matter where you are, if you apply that formula, you get to the same point. So follow the formula. Don't make it about. So this is not a soldier like soldier training. Would have delved more into those pillars. Like when you're talking about response, the idea for talking about response or what's working is it's not about the person implementing. Right? So you won't be, again, you won't, what you put that risk, and risk can mean so many things, right? So you won't be seen as though you are promoting somebody. It's about what they did. It's about how they did it. It's about what difference it's making. How is it changing a particular social problem or making life easier for people? So pretty much it's just follow the framework. So someone wouldn't misunderstand. I think, oh, you're just singing praises of someone, or what we call hero worship, right? Essentially, like I said, just follow the framework. They discuss limitations, be honest about what's working and what's. That's very important when you're following a solution. So why are there limited opportunities around solutions? That is not a that is a general journalism question. I don't think there are limited opportunities really. I honestly don't think, because maybe it's, I don't know, maybe our continent or our country, but I see a lot of opportunities out there interested in supporting journalists to tell stories about what's working. Like I've seen a lot. Maybe it's limited on our side. I don't know, but I think it's also a journalism question. I'm happy to have other senior colleagues on the call join. So Mr. Abba, I'm just sure it's here to share their thoughts on this. Or personal take, I don't really think. It depends on where you're looking and how you are, how you are projecting these stories. I strongly believe that solution journalism, so it's journalism generally, like I think I mentioned it earlier. When we do this work, right, it's about making the society better. Right? It's not just about reporting for reporting's sake. Be it investigative journalism, be it solution journalism, you are doing it because you want to surface an issue, you want people to be aware, you want people to act, you want people to be more accountable, you want people to be held, be held responsible for things that they've committed to, and things like that. So I kind of think if we keep these conversations just in the journalism space, maybe that's where we see limited opportunities. Or, but if you make it also about those issues, right? I've taken solution journalism to conversations or events and conferences that are not about journalism, right? So solution journalism is not just about journalism. It's about all of the social issues that you're reporting on. If you are reporting around education, right? When there is an education conference, go there and talk about solution journalism to say, look, we're doing solution journalism. This is what we are seeing. This is what we are learning. I've taken solution journalism to a global security conference in Australia. They accepted the workshop that I pitched, right? And although I didn't get funding, I was going to attend. My office was going to fund it, but this is issues with visa, so another colleague presented. I've taken solution journalism to a conference about HIV and AIDS last year, AIDS conference. I've taken solution journalism to a conference about family planning, because these are the issues that you are reporting on, right? So why not take those conversations, take that approach there to say, look, this is what we are learning from covering this issue. So you see, by doing that, you are opening up more for this. So it's not just about keeping it in the journalism space, right?
Mm.
So it's also how we, how we think about all of this and how we, let's say, package it and put it out there. So yeah, those are my thoughts on this. Happy to have the next one.
Right, sir. Probably this is the last question I'll ask. I know you're still going to be on the call, so anybody that has any question can still drop it. So this is going to be a question I'll ask you, and I'm going to be asking Mr. Innocent, who's going to be our next speaker coming up in the next 2-3 minutes. At what point do the interpretation of data come up when you're writing a solution story? Now, I know what you've talked around is even the process of gathering or trying to even generate your idea. But at what point does it come up when you're writing the story? I'll make this good reference. Years ago, my very early age of writing solution journalism, I remember one of the first time, and that was what helped my meeting with Mr. Innocent. I remember how he sat me down for close an hour on a conversation around the north graph of the story. At one point, I was giving up because I was like, sir, just publish the story. And I'm saying it because a lot of journalists they just want to see the story get published, right? Whether it is correct, whether it fits into the 4 pillars, whether it carries the right data, right? They just want to make it published. So, and the schooling I had that 1 hour had almost shaped every of my mentality on how I report every story. He probably is just hearing this for the first time, right? So, at what point do you introduce data to the same step process of writing this time social stories? Just in 2 minutes, then we invite Mr. Innocent to come.
Hmm. I don't know if there's a one. I'm glad Innocent will also be speaking to this. I'm not sure if there's a one to answer this, but I'll just back to that slide I asked, right? How will you bring in data to strengthen one of these pillars, right? If I get that question correctly, I think that question is just sort of maybe asking this same question again, maybe in a
Yeah, yeah.
different way. Yes, to be honest, and again, like Joshua put in that chat, data can help strengthen all of this, right? So imagine, okay, so imagine you are looking at this data, uh, what's it called now? The example I did there, that's like the finished stuff, and they are now visualizing it. This this one about reported cases, um, and COVID-19 reported cases. I think this is since then when the first cases up until now. Yeah, actually 7 days. This is up until 7th April, right? So this gives you like a snapshot of what's going on. But if you dig in deep, like the different, so and you're focused on say Africa, right? And you dig in deep, you start looking at disaggregated data of this country. Yes, if you're looking at if the story is how Africa outperformed other continents, maybe COVID-19, whatever. So, but if you get the actual raw data, disaggregate it according to countries, according to states, I'm sure you start seeing data that will, help answer some of this. So the big picture you're saying is, oh yes, Africa is doing well. But if you disaggregate it, maybe you go there and see that, look, even though if you look at it, that big picture, Africa is doing well, but on a country by country basis, there are countries that are doing terrible, and terribly, they are doing so bad, right? And that's a problem as far as global health security is concerned for those who report in the health space, because there's a saying that we are only as strong as our weakest link. So if you think Africa is doing well, but there's one country that is doing bad, that's a disaster waiting to happen, because one outbreak there can mean problem for the entire continent and make a problem for the entire world. So you see, even in that big data you're looking at to say, hey, Africa is doing well, but looking at it, in depth, you're seeing that some are doing badly. And that's already giving you the limitation side. That data is already helping, point at limitation. In that data too, you can, so imagine you now, I don't know the word that you data people use. Is it just opposite or correlate it? I don't know. with, let's say, investment data, right? How much are
Yeah.
these companies investing in health or maybe investing in infectious diseases? We're already using that data is already showing. Maybe I'm imagining maybe you will see something like, oh, countries that are invested more in preparing for epidemic, these outbreaks, they have better numbers, and even in that African data that you're looking at. So you see, that's already giving you the insight pillar. So essentially, it's looking at the data critically. And back to what I said, the data it doesn't tell you the whole story. It's when you look at it, take it apart as much as you don't know, depending on how much data you have access to, because that's a problem, another problem on its own, how much data is even out there to analyze and make sense of. But by the time you start looking at those, you now start seeing, all of this. Even in that, just looking at that data can tell you so many things, can tell you, help you get, strengthen all of these pillars. Like I said, you're already seeing that countries are invested well, maybe they, invested better, their numbers are also better. Those are either investing in health or they're not invested in epidemic preparedness, their numbers are they are reporting more. You can look at health workers. How are the human resources side? Are the health workers trained? Do they have enough health workers? All of that. It's already giving you, more insight and helping strengthen all of this. So it's essentially the question you want to answer, the question you want to answer or the insights you're looking to bring out. Because the story we tell at the end of the day, I'm sure we must have mentioned this in previous sessions. The story we tell is as good as the questions we ask. So it's just asking questions of that data. Why is this so? Why is this so? And use experts to get context. Again, someone put this in the chat even before I mentioned it. That context matters because maybe you want to understand why that data is. So talk to the experts. This is what I'm saying. What does this mean? Right? They can help give you the context to make you make sense of it. So it's essentially the data, asking it questions, looking at it critically, and using experts to get the context as well, make sense of it, even after you've done your so that sort of putting all of that together helps you to tell um, a complete story. That would be my take on that. But I'm happy to also get in a sense statement is
All
asking.
right. All right, sir. Thank you very, very, very much. Um, I would just quickly want to introduce Mr. Innocent. And thank you very much. I mean, it's always a pleasure for my end listening to you at every time. Seeing how you can the sweet thing is how you can always break solution journalism into different fields. And that's like one of the things we always want to emphasize that data journalism, just like you said, or solution journalism is not just a standalone separate from the usual journalism, right? You can always get your stories just the same way you attend a particular event and you want to report about it. You can always just get your stories um and from telling the first point of the story, you're maturing the story into seeing that it's also a solution driven. It can be a solution driven story, or it can be a data driven story, or any other field, climate driven, and just take the conversation further. Thank you very, very much, sir. At this point, I want to introduce Mr. Innocent, who is the managing um, director, if I'm not mistaken, and also the business development lead of Prime Progress. Mr. Innocent, from my end, Happy New Year first.
Thank
And
you,
thank you very,
KJ.
thank you very much for joining. If you can present, please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you so much. Just a second, please. Okay. Good morning. Please confirm you can hear me. Or good afternoon.
Yes, we can hear you clearly and we can see your screen also.
Been dodgy, so I kind of jump from one to the other, but I'm trying to make sure I stabilize things. So just in case I freeze for a second or two, bear with me. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can, sir. We can hear you very
Yes.
perfectly. It's even
All
much
right,
better.
great. Thank you so very much to you, Kehinde, and then to the Data Fight Academy for having me. It's such an honor to take this session. And then thank you, Mr. Chibuike. It's always beautiful sitting back and listening to you as the big man in the social space. Well done, sir. And thanks to everyone. We're going to be having a few slides, and I'll be focusing on how we do it at Prime Progress, right? The Prime Progress way, how we weave data into what we do. At Prime Progress, most of our stories are text-based, but we have an approach to including data, incorporating data into what we do. So I would love it to be as interactive as it could be. So from time to time, I might probably want to ask one or two of us a question. I want us to respond so that we're able to have a discussion as and less of a presentation, right? All right, so this is the overview. This is what we're going to be looking at. We'll be looking at what we understand data to be, and then we'll be looking at the two types of data we use at Prime Progress. Remember, again, we're doing it I'm discussing the Prime Progress way, so that we get insight into how we do it practically. And then we'll be discussing how we use the data, the two types of data, right? And then we'll be touching on examples. So in between, you'll see examples, screenshots of what we've done. And then we'll talk about you getting comfortable using data, right? How you can start small and then data sources. Then we'll look at a case study, which I will pull from the Prime Progress website. So many of you already know, maybe in case you don't know, Prime Progress is a solutions-focused platform. We tell stories around how people are responding to social problems, but also we kind of document how people are screwing stereotypes, right? How people are defying social, religious, traditional stereotypes, barriers to find self-expression and happiness. So that's what we do at Prime Progress. And solutions journalism is at the core of our practice. So if you can respond to any of this, I want you to think around maybe, look back. When we started teaching or rather learning mathematics much more in-depthly, you must have heard about such concepts as the Pythagoras theory, the almighty formula, and the BODMAS concept. For me, I was never like the maths type, right? I loved literature, I loved history, I loved government, I loved English, but maths, I wasn't very comfortable with it. But I knew that to actually scale through secondary school, I needed to understand maths. It was like, it used to sound like, all the mathematical formulas used to sound like abstract to me. And when the teacher enters, I feel the urge to just leave. But then one day I paid attention, and then relating to a rectangle. If you had ever come across the Pythagoras theory, the almighty formula, or the BODMAS, and if that's kind of opened access for you to start liking maths, If any of us can respond to that, if you can still remember what the Pythagoras theory is, the BODMAS theory is, and then the quadratic equation. So just using that as an example to introduce what I want to discuss. Anybody? Anybody can pick up the mic if you want to. You could just throw something on the chat.
Certificate said he remembered board maths, right? The, the best of my own mathematics, I think, should stop at anything quantitative.
Kind of, what did you say?
I said the best of my mathematics should stop at anything quantitative. Any big thing around the additions and subtraction. If it's past that level, I'm out.
Oh, I was thinking as a data journalist, those were like things you played around with. So let me just
Interesting.
explain
That's
this.
helpful.
I used to have issues with maths, and then I used to hear them talk about the Pythagoras theory. And then I had issues solving the problems relating to the, uh, the right angle and all of that. So one day I paid attention and I had someone talk about how that the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the length of the opposite sides, that is the adjacent sides. So the theory was given, and then I looked at it much more closely. The more I studied it, the more it became much more, it sounded easier. Then I started practicalizing it. I didn't get it the first time, but I kept trying. Eventually, it started making more sense, right? I started understanding it, and then I started using it much more effectively. But I had to, first of all, disabuse my mind from I had to first of all disabuse my mind from the thinking that it was impossible for me to use the theory. And then the second one was the quadratic equation. I kind of loved it from the first. Okay. First of all, I didn't understand it. It didn't make much sense to me. But then I had the word almighty formula. So it kind of
Is it just me or Innocent is frozen? Is it from my end?
I think it's from his end. Let's just give him a minute to just sort that out.
Okay, just wanted to be sure it's into the.
Let's just give him a minute to sort that out, then we'll continue. Okay. Okay, so while we still wait for Mr. Innocent to join, I'm almost guessing that his network is what is. Okay, he's back. All right. I think he's joining and he's coming back. He's joining and he's coming back. There's a lot of network glitches. Uh, So for some of us that been down to the training, if we were following the conversation over time, some of the things that we're trying to picture down from Innocent, and even you will see it in several slides that you saw it in several slides that Certificate said, and down to Mr. Innocent, which is going to also be coming in very soon, is some of the 4 pillars. I know when they were saying a lot of word along 4 pillars, for people that are not so very familiar with the idea or the ideology of solutions reporting, you might find it a very new, you might find a very, very disturbing thing. Is it disturbing or probably very new? Yeah, so this is what the 4 pillars basically entails, right? Seeing how solutions reporting could flow. Every solution story has to flow within these 4 sections, right? Basically down from the response to down to the evidence, down to the insights, and down to the limitation. I will tell you that from my end, I've had this particular picture on every of my devices, that's all of my phone devices, for more than 4 years. That is to say that at every time when I'd had to do anything that matters to solutions reporting, I always go down to have this first on my screen, first on my face, and see how every of those questions can be answered. So if I had gone into an interview, I found an issue, a problem, or a response to a problem that I want to report, right? My first thought is, can I divide or decategorize some of my writings into these 4 parts, right? And why we had to start the training, or why we had to talk about the training, is that seeing that, can you get to a point where data play a very key role in how you interpret the problem? Data play a key role in how you interpret the evidence. Data play a key role on how you interpret the insights. Data play a key role also in how you interpret the limitations, right? A very number of times, and I can tell you this from experience, that every solution journalist, almost every solution journalist I have met, right, the first approach they see in every solution ideas that they want to do is just, let us go and look for who is solving it. And that person that is solving it will tell us the problem that is trying to solve. And I don't think that's like the first thing that should be like the bedrock to how you see or interpret solution journalism. Because at the end of the day, the PR or gaslighting that you're trying to do, or spotlighting that you're trying to do, at the end of the day might be challenging, right? So Innocent is back to the call. Let me just make him hosts. Okay. So Mr. Innocent, you can just pick up from here, and I'll come back.
Yeah, Kehinde, it took me time to rejoin because the thing required me to start registering again to join. Is there a way you can give me a shortcut just in case that happens again?
All right, I'm going to send it directly to you right now.
Thank you. Okay, so sorry about that. Is what I said earlier. So the way we mathematics was paying attention to the very basic things, right? For me, it was paying attention to theories like the Pythagoras theory, getting to understand BODMAS, and then the quadratic equation. By the time I mastered what the quadratic equation is and how it was just to pass my exams, but it was important for me to do it. And once I started paying attention to the basics, it was very easy for me to understand. Just to be sure you can hear me, please confirm you can hear me again.
Yes, we can. You can. Please go ahead.
So it is the same principle for data, right? Getting to pay attention to the very smallest details, understanding what exactly constitutes data. Mr. Chibuike did mention when he was presenting that, well, we should stop thinking about data as hardcore numbers, but we should begin to think about everything that we use to build information as data. And that's the concept we hold very strongly at Prime Progress. So how do we define data? How do we understand data? We see it to be information that is presented in a way that is that clearly and efficiently conveys meaning. So anytime you're able to convey information in a way that makes meaning and helps whoever it is you're communicating with understand what you're saying, then that's data you're communicating. This is data you're dealing with. When you go to the field and interview people and you get their responses, this is data you've collected. All right. So that's why we say it can be in the form of numbers. It could be expressions, verbal expressions. It could be facts or hardcore statistics, even illustrations, anecdotes. All of those can constitute data. All right. It is when we one thing I want you to keep in mind is that this definition is basically coming from the perspective that we are doing what we do purely to communicate and foster understanding, all right? It doesn't take cognizance of the fact that there are unprocessed, unstructured set of data like people like Kehinde work with, right? I mean, a pile of computerized or a string of numbers that you have to work with, clean up, and then present in some kind of visualization. It doesn't take that into cognizance. So we understand data basically to be information that is presented clearly. For the purpose of communication. Sound underwater, but no. So these are the two types of data we know and we use. All right. The first is qualitative. You must have heard that over and over. Mr. Chibuike did well mentioning the different kinds. But we just reiterate. The first is qualitative, which are like verbal statements, and they can also be reactions that can to the subject of investigation. When I say the subject of investigation, I'm sure you'll understand better as we progress. The aim is to further communication, right? To promote the aim of communication, which is understanding. And when we talk about qualitative data for us, I mean, generally, it has nothing to do with hardcore numbers. And how we use them to portray what we do. So the other one is quantitative. Here is when we present information in a way that is very, very, very measurable, right? And when we talk about, for example, the ratio of female journalists in Nigeria to male, then we're talking about quantitative data. Because at that point, we might be bringing up numbers like the ratio or rather 100 journalists, 4 to 6 will mean, okay, there are 40 female journalists and there are 60. These are hardcore numbers that are measurable, right? And then it could be something as simple as the dollar rate, the dollar to naira rate, right? And then it could also be something like what we call particulate matter, PM, which is measured in diameters ranging from 2.5 to 10. Particulate matter now is Mr. Chibuike will understand this very well, and those of us who understand health issues around pollution will understand that very well. They are tiny particles that can, the smaller they are, the more likely they can enter the bloodstream, all right, and kind of contaminate the body. So they are measured in diameters and they range from between 2.5 and 10. We call them PM 2.5 or PM 10. Right? So when we have numbers like these that are measurable, then we're talking about quantitative data, right? And then we say they're mostly expressed in hardcore numbers, all right? And the purpose of such presentation is usually to show either progress, a decline, prevalence, disparity, as the case might be. In terms of progress now, if we say that the per capita income of Nigeria has increased, we are now somewhere around $800, coming down from around 1,600 during Buhari's time to about 800 during Tinubu's time. So we are, with that, we are able to see a decline in the per capita income. And then if the numbers probably rose, then we're looking at progress. And then we can also use it to measure prevalence, right? The extent to which something is prevalent. Maybe a problem is prevalent, and we can put it in a measurable way through numbers, right? And then we can talk about disparities, all right? How something is removed from the order, to the extent to which something is removed from the order. So this will be disparities for us. And then the entire idea is to further understanding and convey deeper meaning. So these are the two kinds of data that we use. So the question will now be, how do we use them? Just to confirm, you can hear me again.
Yes, you can, sir. You can.
Yes.
Correct. Thank you. So these are the two kinds of data we have. So how do we use them? Mr. Chibuike asked us how data can be applied to any of the 4 pillars, right? At Prime Progress, just like somebody answered, it can be applied anywhere. I mean, from the response to the problem down to the limitation. But in our stories, we kind of project them more to show the problem, the extent of the problem. And then later, when we are analyzing the impact. So data can feature anywhere from response to limitations, but we figure it out more, we bring it around to highlight the problem. Of course, you understand that in solutions journalism, even though the focus is how people are responding to the problem, in itself. So while the focus is not the problem, you must talk about the problem at some point so people can understand what we're dealing with, right? So at that point, we kind of incorporate data showing the extent of the problem, all right? So in this instance, what we do is what we call data referencing. Personally, I like to call it data sprinkling, all right? Which is different from the way people would deal with big data will understand or interpret data sprinkling. I call it data sprinkling. Sprinkling is because we do some kind of referencing. We reference the data in hyperlinked form, all right? So in a typical text-based story, we validate the points by making references, all right? In the next slide, you see the example I'll give you. And then we use it to show local context, the local context of a global phenomenon. Again, trying to show the prevalence of something. If we're talking about HIV prevalence in Nigeria, for example, is HIV the right thing to use? Because we have. So let's say we're talking about the HIV burden in Nigeria, and then for us to help our reader understand where Nigeria stands in the global context, we kind of quote what the numbers are for Nigeria and the position Nigeria occupies in the African and global context. All right. So in that sense, we kind of try to show the local context of a global phenomenon. All right. And then also we can use it to make comparisons between times, events, implications, like I mentioned before, decline and then progress. So these numbers, we derive them from data sets, we derive them from we could say an organization like UNEP, for example, is an international organization. Before they put out data, it's got to be trusted. So we get this data. So here, you're going to see how we sprinkle data. And this story, this data, this is a screenshot from a story titled cash for vaccines, how using as the case study throughout. We'll get to a point where we'll open the story on Prime Progress and you'll see it. So if you look from the first paragraph down to the third paragraph, you see where we made references country grapples with a high burden of vaccine preventable disease, including meningitis, polio, and measles. A 2019 study by Gavi Zero Dose Learning Hub estimates that at least 41% of deaths among children under 5 in Nigeria may be vaccine preventable. So you see here, we have touched on something, we say 41%, all right, which helps the reader understand the prevalence of this situation, all right? So 41% of children in Nigeria die from issues that are vaccine preventable. So we kind of register it in your mind that, hey, as much as 41% of people in children in Nigeria will die from issues that could be prevented. So we managed to reference a number here, we sprinkle a number there, right? If you look somewhere here down in the second paragraph, the second sentence of the second paragraph says, the hesitation is understandable. Okay, just to give context, but vaccine distrust. Hesitation is understandable and it stems from Pfizer's 1996 failed meningitis vaccine trial that left 11 children dead and more with permanent disabilities. Now you can see a hardcore number talking about 11 children in that instance, right? I mean, stemming from Pfizer's 1996 vaccine testing failure. And then in the third paragraph, we boycott of the polio vaccine. The result was what? 30% surge in confirmed polio incidents. So we kind of sprinkle this data here and there. We make these references to help you understand the situation locally. And then where is necessary, we place it side by side the global situation, right? So this is what we mean when we talk about data referencing and sprinkling. So just to confirm, you can hear me again.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Great. So number two, how we use data. Again, quantitative data referencing. So we use it again to highlight response to the response impact, right? Sorry, I think I made a mistake there. We use it to highlight the response to the impact of the response. Remember, the second pillar of solutions journalism is impact, right? So we use it to highlight the impact of the response. So still in a text-based SOJO story, SOJO is the short form for solutions journalism. Still in a text-based SOJO story, we try to validate the second pillar, again, impact, by stating how, all right? We state hard numbers showing the reach of the response, all right? How far the response has traveled, how many people have benefited or are benefiting, the situational improvement in contrast to pre-response. So what do we mean here? Okay, I was writing a story about a man who left organized religion, congregational worship, because he felt disillusioned. He felt like there's a lot of fraud in the Nigerian religious setting. And then he decided that he's going to help Africans disabuse their minds and then build their life through some kind of mental, religious, economic evolution, making progress without necessarily falling victim to religious scams. And so in the process, I had to sit back and begin to look at, from the time he started building the structures, the networks, the platforms to help these Africans achieve this evolution, how many people has he been able to reach? All right. And I'm also looking at what was their economic life before he stepped in. What was their mindset in terms of making unbiased decision and economic decisions before he stepped in. How many people have been affected? The conferences he puts together, the book, the manual he had put together, how many people have access to this? And so with that, we're able to make some kind of comparison between the pre-response and the post-response, right? I did a story about a man called Zana Mustafa in Borno, who kind of uses a special kind of radicalism to fight Boko Haram. Using the Future Prowess Islamic Foundation, for example, he brings in children from the different shades, right? Children of Boko Haram, children of Boko Haram in the war, community children, all shades of children who have been affected by the conflict without discriminating. He brings them together and then he provides education to them. For him, giving education to the children of Boko Haram was teaching them to embrace what matters more. And that was his way of fighting Boko Haram, because Boko Haram is fighting education, right? And so in that context, we have to sit back and say, what was the situation like, the educational situation like in Borno State pre-project, now post-project? What is the level of development of the children who have been involved pre-project and post-project? Or during the project. I mean, the project had been on for many years, in some kind of hard numbers to help the people appreciate what we're talking about. All right, I can go on and on. And then these numbers are typically obtained from responding agencies. Again, I have mentioned organizations like UNEP, World Bank, and all of those. All right. So this is the second way we use quantitative data in terms of sprinkling, referencing, right? So you will see this example. Sorry. In this example, right? The last paragraph. This is the same story. Cash for vaccine. How a reward program boosts child immunization in Nigeria. All right. The last paragraph said, he said in Gombe alone, NI, which stands for New Incentives, has enrolled about 224,000 beneficiaries, made 797,000 disbursements, amounting to about 742 million, all right, which comes down to about $444 plus $1,000, and has encouraged over 3 million vaccinations. Now, looking at these numbers alone, it kind of helps the reader appreciate the extent to which New Incentives response is working in the North, all right? Because like we said before, the North has historically against vaccines, but then their program, which is a cash for vaccine response, which kind of says, okay, every time a caregiver comes to the hospital to immunize their child, please take 1,000 naira to support yourself as transport. And then every time you come, that 1,000 might be small for you, but it's big for some of those caregivers. So that 1,000 motivates them to keep coming. And then by the time you finish the last schedule, by the time you conclude the schedule, you get 5,000 naira extra. And that's big for many of them, all right? And then this kind of changed their mindset from vaccine apathy to vaccine embrace. And then now we're staring at the results and it's like, wow. All right. So these numbers kind of help you understand what the progress has been. And then the other way we use quantitative data is some kind of visualization. Now, this is pulled from the same story. We got it from the same story. So we did some kind of visualization to show the rates or the coverage of immunization in northern Nigeria. All right. Talking about the Northeast, talking about the Northwest, and then Nigeria generally. All right. Form. And before you find this like this, it probably was pulled from some kind of unstructured numbers. And then we put them together like this in a way, we visualize it like this in a way that someone can look at them in a glance and understand. So this alone is telling a story. So coming down to the question, I think I'll technically answer that question. Kane, they asked, at what point do you visualize data and all of that? At the points where you feel like the reader should understand what you're talking about by just looking at the numbers. Let me say, for example, you have unstructured data like you might have, and then you know that it's too complex for a reader to just go through and read. So you go through the rigor of cleaning up the data and then distilling this from that data to kind of help the reader understand. That's a better way of communicating through numbers, right? So that's one time you are able to pull that out. But I guess I can respond to that much more strongly later. Can you please confirm if I still have time, just to be sure?
Yeah, we're just wrapping up in about 10 minutes. Yeah.
Oh, so I've got a lot of time. So the one thing I want to make sure I emphasize is you've got to get comfortable with hard data, right? And there are easy ways to start. I started this conversation by talking to you about the Pythagoras theory and how that probably Pythagoras sat down one day and felt like people were going to have a lot of issues understanding the length that is equal to what. And then he felt like, hey, why don't we develop this theory that says the length of the hypotenuse is equal to the size of the opposite side, the adjacent side, all right? So people begin to understand the longer side of the right angle is 10 cm, right? It's 10 cm, for example. Then we understand that the two opposite sides are 10 cm. This one has 5, the other one has 5. That's 10. So by having that in my consciousness, it means every time I see a right angle, I understand what number the other side should be. Or you give me the number of the baseline, then I understand what the hypotenuse should be and what the other line should be. It makes it much more simple. So the best way to start is to start from that simple form, that basic form, all right? Look at the data and start small, strings of values, right? So instead, begin to see data as 1 plus 1. Begin to see it as 1 minus 1. All right. So by the time you begin to see this, then your mind begins to relax, and then you learn how to play with them. And before long, you become a pro like Kehinde. I know when Kehinde started, but now he's a big man. I mean, I see a lot of things. I'm like, wow.
And I'm very big yet.
So the first thing is to see the numbers. Start with small numbers. All right. Appreciate little things and start seeing them as data. Then the next thing is to begin to interrogate their implications, right? So if we say 1 plus 1, what is the implication of 1 plus 1? The implication is 2, right? If we say 1 minus 1, the implication is 0, right? So once you're beginning to see numbers like that, they could be coming from the Bureau of Statistics, the National Bureau of Statistics, anywhere they're coming from. But you begin to make meaning of smaller numbers. And then next thing is to arouse your own curiosity by trying to find out their implications. That's the first step. Once you do that, you're beginning to move. And then try arranging them. Once you've seen the numbers, you're trying to imagine their implications, try then arranging them. This is in the context of doing visualizations, right? I mean, like infographics and all of that. This is in that context. And then try arranging them. All right. The basic thing you must always start with or learn first is Excel. All right, Google Sheets. And then you can transition from there to add in some other tools and all of that for data analysis. Just a second. Okay. And then next, you want to try to tell a story. I'll refer you back to this. So we see these numbers as they are, all right, this visualized set. And then they came in some complex form. But then we have been able to, first of all, we had to start interrogating the numbers, right? And then we had to start arranging them. After arranging them, we had to tell a story with them, all right? To tell you that there are about 20% unvaccinated people in the northeast. All right, and then there are partially, those of them who have been partially vaccinated, they are up to 29% in the northeast, and then those who are fully vaccinated are 24%. So by this, we are telling you the story of the vaccine story in the northeast, and then we do the same for the northwest, and then we do the same for the entire Nigeria. We show you the national average, right? So once you're done interrogating them to find out the implications, you want to start arranging them and then start telling a story with them. Start with something basic, very basic things. Before you know what's happening as you progress and implement, add more tools, blah, 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 before you know what's happening, you're there, all right? So one thing you have to do is to keep repeating the process, do it 1,000,000 times, learn more tools, keep at it until mastery is here. So ideally, where do we get our data, the sources of our data, whether qualitative or quantitative? So for qualitative, interviews. Many of us here have been journalists for years, or we've been involved in data stuff and all of that. But we don't treat our interviews as data. When you go out there to interview somebody, you are going to collect data. Have that in mind. When you hold that focus group trying to find out something, you are collecting data. It doesn't have to be hardcore numbers. And then when you are reporting, doing your presentations, these are all data, right? When you go out, maybe you are doing some kind of ethnographic study. For those of us who do solutions journalism, if you really want to do a really strong solution story, it involves some kind of ethnographic study where you go to the community, you kind of mingling with the people for a day or two, trying to find out what the problem is and how the response works. It involves a lot of back and forth interrogation, mingling with the people, understanding it better. That's the best way to do solutions journalism. I mean, there are other ways, but the best solutions journalism I have done stem from this process where I kind of go to the place, spend 2-3 days with the people, and I am interrogating everything. I'm asking a bunch of questions and taking field notes. All right, these are all data. And then we talk about if you're pushing out surveys, for example, you want to not limit it to, excuse me, my inverter is just screaming. Now, if you are doing some kind of survey, it makes sense not to only use close-ended questions. You want to also use open-ended questions so that you can elicit responses, all right, qualitative responses that you can use. Michael, can you turn off the inverter, please? Sorry. So you want to ask open-ended questions that will allow the respondents to provide such responses. So in terms of qualitative data, we're talking about journals. You want to access journals, look up studies that have been done. You want to interrogate media, news media. There's a lot of information there that you can get. There are databases, there are trusted local and foreign agencies, institutions, educational institutions, think tanks, and a lot of them. Then we have government reports, scientific research. So these are like the sources that we go to get our data, be it qualitative or quantitative. Yeah, and so that's the end of my presentation. Thanks for listening, and I'm happy to take questions.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you very, very much, sir. I see a lot of people already clapping their hands. Thank you very, very much, sir. So if you want to, like we said, if you want to send a question, please use the chat box, or you can just signify by raising up your hand. I know I still have TBK, I still have I'm Stan Innocent here, so you can help me answer any of those questions. Use the chat box or just signify by raising up your hand. As we wait for that, so I just want to draw your attention to some of the questions that has been asked also while we're filling the form, right? And okay, I know some of them I'm going to also also have to talk about. But someone was asking, is there a link that connects, especially when you have to source your stories from online, social media advocacy? I don't know how we put it basically, but all this social media helps and cries for help. I mean, the advent of social media platform and people using it to the fullest advantage. Is there a way we connect that to solution journalism? I mean, in the aspect of they responding to their people's problem, and we probably use data to back that benchmark. Let me give you a good example. Someone just went online, people are ranting, this government is bad or this economy, and someone just said, okay, apply for this, I'm going to give a grant around this, and it's just doling out money. And between 1 to 3 days, 5 days, the person has been able to help or throw funds around to help people around just on social media. I'm going to just write your account number. Does that connect in any way? The whole social media parade, does that connect in any way to the whole ideology that solution entails, since it talks about solution to a problem? And can we also validate that in some point with data? That's, I mean, I think you're muted. I can try or mute you. I think you're muted from there.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you clearly.
Yeah, I am kind of trying to understand the question. If it came from someone, can we have him express it the way he feels it?
So, yeah, so this is a campaign was given online, right? NGO raising fund. People are complaining they probably don't have access to this in their community, and someone is just raising fund and dropping out the funds for people in that community. Let's take, for instance, people that are involved in an accident or involved in some kind of issue. And someone used the social media campaign to just, I have influencers, I have the reach, let's raise money and let's just donate it to these people. Does that count in one aspect as solution journalism? And can that be validated through data? I mean, people are poor, you can just connect the line. Does that count in any way in the whole idea of, because any news media can always just jump on to say, yes, this particular person is using social media to raise funds. Does that count in any way? And is there a line that we can draw with data there?
Yeah, Kende, can I go on?
Yes, you can, sir.
Right, great. So while I'm responding to that question, this is the story in case you want to press it. We'll go through it again. Now, Kende, to depend on if that thing is one-off or continuous, right? So if an accident happened, for example, and someone is moved to go online, raise money, and meet the needs of those people, and the person does it like because of this occasion, I do not think it's a good thing. So it's a good response to report on, because it will be very difficult to validate to what extent the lives of those people have been changed or transformed over an elongated period of time. So typically, we advocate or we ask that you take up issues that are sustainable, or responses that are continuous, and they have lasted for at least 1 year. All right. So such a situation, while it's a good gesture, um, maybe some others can take it up, but I wouldn't encourage my team to pick that up. We can report it from a different perspective. We have a section called acts of kindness. So that's an act of kindness. We can report it from that perspective. We can report it under our perspective section, where we kind of distill this person's response and how it helped but it wouldn't be reported on our spotlight session. Our spotlight section is where we report solutions journalism, hardcore solutions journalism, right? But I wouldn't say that qualify if you're looking to meet all of the 4 pillars, right? From the response to the insight to the impact and then the limitations. Because it's one of, I wouldn't say, maybe some others can pick it up, but I don't think I would want to advise my team to do that. Mr. Chibuike understands these things better. He might want to say 1 or 2, but I will encourage that you go for responses that have been there for some time and they are built to be sustained. All right. They are built for not just the short term, but for the long term. Right. So that will be my advice as far as this is concerned. But Mr. Chibuike can say something.
So before I bring him up to also speak, and this is like an overview question that everybody that has always been introduced to solution journalism at one point would always want to ask: does every Sojo story have to contain the 4 pillars? Like, must the 4 pillars be complete in the story? I mean, and I know I'm asking this to just the 4 pillars have to just be complete.
Yeah. The 4 pillars have to be complete. If they are not complete, then it will be very difficult validating. Although I've had a conversation with someone who said, and the person is actually an editor, she said, if you have the 3 of them, then you're good to go. And I'm like, which of them can you push away? Is it the response to the problem? Because there's got to be a response before you can even start interrogating anything. And then number 2 will be the impact. We've got to report the impact. If there's no impact, then there's no Sojo, right? And then the other one is the insight. One thing that Sojo tries to achieve is that if you tell a Sojo story, somebody anywhere should be able to sorry about that. If you tell a Sojo story, somebody anywhere who has the same problem should be able to replicate what you're doing. All right, the person should be able to replicate what you're doing. They want to understand the steps involved. How did you go about solving this problem? Or why did what you tried to solve fail? Because like Mr. Chibuike mentioned, solutions journalism is not just about responses that are working or they're successful. They're also about responses that have failed. So we want to learn, why did they fail? If I want to replicate the same solution, the same response, what should I avoid, right? So it makes sense to have all of the 4 pillars there. That's what I would typically advise my team and then advise everyone to go for the ones that have all of the responses. But I mean, we can always listen and learn if someone else thinks otherwise, because I've met someone who said, I think if you have the 3, and the person is actually a good Sojo editor. She said, if you like the 3, if you have the 3 there, then go for it. But I would love to hear what Mr. Chibuike thinks.
I think I also love to hear what he says. Sachiki, what do you think?
Yeah, so absolutely. I agree with Innocent. Sorry if you see a head pop up doing weekend duties. So but yeah, it's I think the key thing there is it's not an idea, right? Someone is doing something to try and address the problem. So that goes without saying. It has to be part of that story. But in terms of having all of them complete, I think in a way, if you start talking about the response, what is being done, to address the problem, in a way, you will highlight the others, even if they are not complete. Remember when I was speaking, I said it's also when I was sort of giving an overview of what the 4 pillars are, that it's important to be honest about what you have complete and what is not, complete. What is be honest about what you have and what you don't have. And I want to use that I mentioned that because I remember during the time of COVID, these guys, SJN, and most of us will know them if you've been in the solution journalism space, as they really push for the practice globally. So they started this newsletter because of how the pandemic was evolving. People were learning things, but people were also trying in their different communities to try and address the problem. I remember they started this newsletter where they were encouraging journalists to share what they were doing, or what they were learning from their communities. And they specifically said, even if the pillars were not, complete, but the key thing there is people are making effort. So that response bit must be there. So it's not, oh, this is how we think we can address this problem, but you are actually making effort to address the problem. So once that pillar is there, you can now start interrogating others, even if you don't have it complete. So once you now, the moment you say, oh, this is what is being done about the problem, you can now go ahead and say, oh, is there evidence that it is working so far? Maybe it's so in that particular context, I know Innocent mentioned give it 1 year or so before you start reporting on it, which, I 100% agree. But in that particular special situation, because you want people to be learning what is happening, around the particular problem, because everybody was facing the same issue and most people were clueless. You wanted them to learn what was happening so they can pick out. So if you mention the problem, you cannot start asking, oh, is it even having any results, no matter how little, right? So you can report it and make it clear to your audiences that, look, this is something new, but we felt it's important to tell this story as everybody is dealing with this problem. But we'll keep an eye on it. If there's anything new, we will report back to you. What other pillar? Okay, that's the evidence part. The insight, even though it's not 100% complete, you can also ask those questions, right, around the insight. This thing they are doing, how is it, playing out? Is it working? Are there things that people are trying other places, right? That maybe would make this better, or maybe, that intervention better, or maybe not. The limitations pillar. So you can just get bits and pieces of it. So even though it's not complete, because at the end of the day, the key thing is you are reporting on that response, right? The limitation pillar too, you can start asking those questions. So even though it's new, but we feel this is really impactful because this is a general situation or problem that everybody is facing. So even if the limitations, they are not very complete, right? But what are they seeing? What are they experiencing so far? Even in trying to address that problem, what are the challenges that they are facing? Maybe someone else has been able to fix that problem, right? They can learn from the process. So that's my take. It really depends on on the topic, but the key thing there is be honest about what you know and what you don't know, and always promise your listeners that you will come back and once you have the full picture. And again, that's opportunity to even have more stories, so you can come back, you can revisit the story and have like a part 2 of it or something.
I know what got us was you promise your reader to.
Can I add something?
Yeah, please.
Mr. Chibuike, after a lot of time, a long time working as an editor, I learned something. I learned to push writers to try to cover the whole thing. Because once you start saying you can actually excuse one limitation, the kind of pitches you get might be the ones that you might have to send them back to go do pre-reporting research. So we kind of say, interrogate very well, be sure that the thing is complete before you come. And also, okay, in what you talked about, a one-time response. One example I used to give is somebody going to an IDP camp, for example, to distribute food. I've got a lot of such pitches where someone says somebody went to IDP camp, the person is distributing food and all of that, and is helping the people. I say, good, it's a good gesture, but we won't take it because it's not sustainable. I mean, for me, solutions journalism has to go beyond just doing temporary things. It has to be something that kind of add meaning to the people's life beyond the immediate. All right. For example, we did a story about a group that came together to solve their open defecation form. They did local toilets. It didn't work. Later, they found a way to make it better. You see, they have evolved trying to solve their local problem in a sustainable way, even though it's a small community, but it's impacting the community. So those one-time gestures, like going to IDPs, for me, I would say, don't do it, except you want to report it from a different perspective and not a social perspective.
Yeah.
Yep.
And thanks, Innocent. And that was why I used that specific example. It was that's COVID, right? That particular situation, because you don't want, because I'm sure most of us, tuned out from the news then because of, the whole focus on numbers. Every day you're getting new data on new infections, new mortalities. So for me, that was like a special case, right? But
Mm.
I 100% agree with you. If you start excusing it, definitely it's bound to be abused. Yeah, but in that
Mhm.
situation, so that the idea is not to fill the space with at that time, for that particular situation, not to fill the space with just the problem. The problem, new infection, new death. We don't know what to do. I think that was the reason why even they that advocate for social practice and teach it are like, oh, okay. The idea is to learn from what people are doing, but definitely it's not the only way to go about it, or the right way to go about
All right. Thank you so much, sir. So I'm just going to be like, thank you, Mr. Innocent. Thank you, Mr. TBK. I am just going to be doing like, let's say the whole data talk around this whole thing. Um, so I brought them in to see the Soju part. I like to just upscale that from the data part. Um, and like I was saying to everyone when we started this call was that one of the things we wanted to do, or one of the things we do at DataFi is, and the academy is how we see that we can become more beyond becoming a data access institution, but so much that we can also become a data resource institution. By resource, I mean that every time someone has to work with data, do they have the pure understanding of how to use it, right? Or how to interpret it. So there's a stage for using it, there's a stage for the interpretation, and there's a path for the analysis, right? And really, like Mr. Innocent mentioned, you really don't have to have the whole 15-year experience working with numbers and demystifying it anyhow before you can just start from the primary level and begin to upskill your knowledge as problem comes. So that's the same way solution journalism over time has evolved, right? Seeing that um, people can tell their responses or always have to speak to their responses, but for this time from the angle of how is data a concern to every of those stages, right? I was making reference one time and I said that a lot of time what I have discovered as a person is that anytime anybody wants to tell any social story, right, what they are looking for, right, is what they are looking for first is the solution, right? Let's go and find the solution. And by the time they look for the solution, they expect that whosoever is implementing the solution is the one that will tell them the problem. Then they go and find the data around it. Meanwhile, you can just sit down and the whole issue of Nigeria is problem. Sorry to say that out loud, but then, right? And you can just sit down on the problem and while you're day-to-day reporting it, if you are not uh, in a news platform that the core reporting system is Soju, you can always say, okay, over the last 2-3 months, I've been reporting this problem. Over the last 1 year, I've been reporting this problem. Can I make an extra search for someone or a person or people who are directly implementing the solution, right? And find out what they're doing, right? And begin to tell your own social story from that particular point. So I'm saying this to bring out this formula to say, just like our speakers have reiterated, that they are um, data play a role or play roles in every of these 4 steps. That is the response step, the evidence step, the insight step, the limitation step. So let me give a practical example. You are someone is there's flooding happening in a particular community, and someone is helping creating an initiative, right, to deal with the flood, right, and help people either adapt to it or find a way to even mitigate the effects on that particular community, right? And you are traveling to that community to see how that response really, really works, right? If you don't have a good insight of the problem that you are even trying to go and find a response to, right, you will almost miss out. And I know Mr. Chibika and Mr. Innocent will agree with me on this. You will almost miss out in the kinds of questions you will ask the person, because by that time you get there, you start asking the person, what made you, questions like, what made you want to respond to this problem? The problem is obvious at one point. Data is even saying the problem is obvious, right? At one point, when you use data to understand the problem, what we're saying in essence is that when you use data to understand the problem, it kind of help you rearrange the understanding of what kind of questions you would ask whosoever is responding to that problem or creating an initiative to respond to that problem. That in a way would sift or filter out if that person is doing that problem for the PR or advert sense of reporting or advert sense or PR sense of just wanting to be in the spotlight, or trying to actually find a sustainable, in quotes, solution to deal with that particular problem, right? And I've seen this over time, noticing how people just throw away numbers or throw numbers because they want to form the knot graph or just put numbers in one particular part of the story. I once read a story when someone was talking about out of school children, right? And the person was talking about out of school children in Nigeria. And when I was reading the story, and I think the person was trying to describe how out of school children is a concern in a particular state. In fact, the person was limiting the story in a particular state, right? And trying to say this particular solution is helping this. And I saw all the data reports in all the data quotes in that story, and no reference to what was the number of out of school children, especially in that state, so that we can at least narrow down that this issue, beyond being a problem, a complex or general problem or general overview problem in Nigeria, it is also a problem in that state. There was no reference to that. All the person was just doing was 10 million people in Nigeria are out of school. Okay, but you are reporting about Jos, or you are reporting about Plateau, right? What is the number of out of school in Plateau? There is no extra effort to getting that particular data, right? So if you have sat down first to understand the problem, and that's why I will say, before you even start interviewing anybody that is providing that response, right, get to a point where you can actually use data to validate that that problem exists, right? There's something we always try to do in data fights, especially when we try to write story, is that saying that beyond the fact that this data exists, it doesn't exist in isolation, right? There are things connected to it. So can we find a trend in it? Can we find what is foiling that data, right? So someone says there is unemployment rate. Are there factors, right, that one can find that is actually foiling that particular data to come into existence? If we can't find those factors, data cannot just exist in isolation, right? That's one of the things that we probably need to take off from here. I'm going to show you just a quick example. I'm just going to make reference to just little, don't worry, I'm not going to try to do any math here, right? So this is as of 2018. Let me confirm if my screen is very visible, please. Because I know I'm just going to be doing a lot of talking, sorry. Anyone? Okay, yeah, it is. So this is the data of out of school children as of 2018, right? Is it UBEC that produced this data? I think it's UBEC that produced this data, right? And as at that time, if we just run a normal filter, and this is just give us practical example into some of the things we like to just talk about, right? If we run a practical filter on this data, this is where your filter box is, right? And ask this whole sheet to tell us to sort the number, which is the highest to the lowest, right? That's sort by Z to A. It will show us that Kano, which is always very obvious, has what? 234 children that are out of school, which by any newsroom, if only this section right? If only this section is shared to any newsroom, if just only this section is shared to every newsroom, what everyone will say is that the people that has the highest out of school in Kano, in Nigeria, is Kano State. After Kano State, it is Akwa Ibom. After Akwa Ibom, it is Katsina, then Kaduna. In fact, a lot of newsroom, and we can just go to do a Google search to say which state has the highest out of school. You will pick the first 5. If you want us to try it, it's as simple. You just go to what state in Nigeria has the highest out of school children in Nigeria, right? You would even Google area. Okay, this is telling us even Kebbi, right? I know I will see some reports that will quote Kano, will quote Zamfara. No, I don't want to use this one. Some reports will quote Kano, Zamfara. I think this is as of 2020. Okay, I'm using the 2018 data. Okay. I'm using the 2018 data. This is as of 2020, right? So I'm using the 2018. Let me see if I can delimit my search to in 2018. KBUB. I don't know why it's giving me this state with the highest. This is a 20. This is very more recent data, right? So let's go back to the sheet, and there's something I'm trying to point out here, right? These data are very, very recent. They have updated it, right? So this is 2018 data. So any newsroom that is working with this data now will say the top 5 children, state that has the highest out of school is Kano, Akwa Ibom, Katsina. Why? Because data has already said 900 obviously is over this thing. But an additional step we like to take in data fight is, are you even comparing that data over something? Because like what I said earlier, data cannot exist in isolation, right? So if you have the understanding already that data don't exist in isolation, one of the first things that you will want to do is say, what is the population the out of school per population, right? Or population, right? We always call it per capita. Over, so what's the out of school ratio per capita? That's out of school over population. To see that if there are 10 children or 1 million children in Kano, how many of them are out of school? If there are 1 million in Lagos, how many of them are out of school? Why we are giving this good example is to say that if a solution or an initiative now come and now tell you there is out of school children more in okay, let me run the filter by this. There is how no, let's run it by this one. If the population, if the what do they call it? This initiative come up to tell you something like, we are creating an initiative to make sure that so we are spotlighting Akwa Ibom this time, right? Every children in Akwa Ibom gets to school. Why? Because Akwa Ibom has the largest out of school ratio. You almost want to wonder and question it, that if you decide to run it per capita, right, you would discover that if you compare the number of out of school to the number of children in that particular state, the numbers are actually much lower compared to other states, right? So this is what I've just done. The filter on this point shows us that by data search, right, Kano, Akwa Ibom, and Katsina has the highest out of school. But then we decided to check the children population. This is children population or child population. Child population of each of those states, right? And decide to divide this over this. So what we just did was divide this column over this column, then turn it into percentage. If we now decide to run which percentage is actually the highest, you discover that Akwa Ibom actually is one of the lowest, right? Compared to even the Kano that we are saying is part of the highest out of school. Where's Kano on this sheet? This is Kano here, right? Now I'm saying this as just a practical example to show you that some people that question that that run around with initiatives or run around with ideas and say the data is already showing that these guys are suffering too much. If you really do the basic maths, you can almost ask any initiative to say, but these guys are not suffering as much as you claim. Does not mean that we don't want you to solve that problem, but this is not compared to what is being obtainable in these states like Yobe, Taraba, Zamfara, right? Are there plans to upscale your work such that if you are doing it in Kano, that actually doesn't have that much effect? It's just because their population of children is many. That's why you think that a lot of them are out of school. What of those that in Yobe, that is just probably closer to you, that is also in the North region, or Zamfara, that is also in the North region, are you also planning to upscale your day? Those are how you test things like initiative, solutions, right? You almost discover that someone who is doing much work around these 3 states, and data can almost prove to you that someone doing more work or doing an initiative around these 3 states to upskill children out of school is doing more work, even more than someone in Kano. And an initiative cannot just come and tell us that because Kano has 900 or something, so it means that we are creating a solution to just make everything. And this is how, like I said, you can test both private CSOs and even government initiative. When they tell you we are trying to upscale these people and solve the initiative, the people might not be facing the problem as much as you think they are, right? You might just be investing resources in the wrong places. And all you just probably need to do is just divert that approach down to another place. So someone creating an initiative in UB, Taraba, is almost going to be very impactful. That's what we are seeing. It's almost going to be very impactful, more than someone creating that same initiative in Kano. Why? Because the population per capita in Kano State is showing us that it's just 21% of them, left to over 43% of Yoruba people. That is almost half of the children are not going to school. Almost any children, it means that if you count 10 children in Yobe State, right, at least 4 to 5 of them are not going to school. Meanwhile, if you go to that same Kano State and count 10 children, right, it's only 2 of them that are not going to school. It's just as simple. Just working the maths help you understand the problem, right? Just working the maths does what? Help you just understand the problem. That's how you can probably use data to find some of all these solutions. So it comes to limitations, right? You also can use data to question some of those things, right? I'm going to show us a random, and this can just be a good story, not really solution-based, but then a good story that we can always speak to for example, right? At one particular point, right, we discovered, and this is just when Mr. Joseph was talking about using map to understand some of these things, is how we discovered the outlier of Gombe, right? Almost every time when we have to report insecurity in Nigeria, all we just did was we saw that, especially in the Northeast where you have Borno and other states, right? There are always high insecurity there. But when you come to Gombe, who is actually in the center, you don't have high insecurity in Gombe, right? Really, what is the cause of this, right? Sometimes in understanding how your initiative helps to create a solution is understanding also what are the things that fuels that problem. So what are the things that are foiling the problem, right? What are the things that are also inspiring the solution? That's one of the ways that you can use to test in a way, test sustainability across all levels, right? What are the things that are foiling the problem? What are the things that are also inspiring the solution? That baseline with data will help you test the sustainability. So someone tells us that you are trying to create an initiative to help people more secure in Gombe State, right? We almost come to explain to us why that, why or how that initiative is going to be more sustainable. Why? Because data is already showing us that Gombe State is actually lower in the whole insecurity problem than its surrounding states, right? So if you now say you are trying to make its people secure, can data show us that they are more secure more than the time you have? And Mr. Innocent mentioned that between the time you started the initiative, right, that you thought of or started the initiative and right now that the initiative has been running, there been any difference in their impact between that time and before they even got the initiative, right? So someone creating an initiative saying that we are trying to help to get peace more in Gombe. Data is already showing that the state is not troubled. So really, when your initiative say you're trying to get peace or restore peace, what peace are you really after? Those are salient questions. If you ask that to any NGO that is providing peace and security outfit in Gombe State, they will almost pursue you out because they already know that what you are saying is not out of is sensational or a sensational part of point of view is because you have also seen the data and you have also tested to say that, okay, these people don't have this problem as much as you think they have it, right? So really, what is your initiative doing? So that will give us a very good context to how we will tell the story, right? So, and probably the final thing I'll probably just show you is I'm saying this so that we can also understand in context how we need to see stories or how we need to see problems anytime we initiate it. Someone also in the journalism space helped me understand. I was working on a particular story around this, right? And we were just trying to see. All we just did was use data to find problem, right? Okay, we went to this is a dashboard of the Ministry of Health, right? And we just went to go and start searching. Maternal mortality. What state is the lowest state? Can we find it is Osun this year, right? In 2022, what state is it to? Is Osun still the lowest? So in 2 years a row, Osun has also been the lowest, right? In 2021, was Osun also the lowest? Yes. Osun 2 was also the lowest in 2021. Now, in the interpretation of solution journalism, right, is there something that Osun State is doing that it is having as low as 68.7 or within 68 and 70 deaths over 1,000? This is the number of deaths here, over 100,000, right? Is there something that the Osun State is doing, right, that can help us understand the approach of solving a problem that someone like Bayelsa is not doing? Or even the Nigerian state government. Is there something that the Nigerian state government can learn from what Osun State is doing, that in the last, between 2021 and 2023, it has constantly maintained the lowest maternal mortality rate ratio in that particular state? If you pick up that story, you would dig into things like budgets, you would dig into things like implementation reports, you would dig into things like appropriations, allocations, and the likes. And I tell you, you actually don't even need to travel anywhere, right? So I'm saying you can learn a lot, right, from seeing how data can deal with some of these problems and use that to carve out, use that to create a lens at which you can now start targeting or even questioning solutions. It's just as simple as that. So interact with, in fact, sit with this data almost for 1 year. I was talking to someone, I think she also interns with Nigerian Earthwatch, and she was part of the people that attended the Data Story Lab 4.0. That's where we had the hackathon on the budget. And she was telling, and when we taught them the whole analysis of the budget, she sat down with a particular analysis and she said, Kenny, I've been analysis for more than 2 weeks like this now. All I just want to do is just create story idea. And we brought out a data on what she had done, right? She was working with the budget data. So we went to look for it. It was on a particular topic. So we went to look for data on that particular topic. And we created up to 4 story ideas that are health related, right? And solution driven, down at least that she can work on each of those months. I know that solution journalists don't like even touching budgets, but you also know in the out of context that you probably might want to put it, every budget provision is always a solution to solve a particular thing, right? So if government tell you that we are trying to do this particular thing and we are budgeted for money to do it, and they don't do it, you can also pick it up, right? I mean, that will obviously take a lot of editing. So I know that the people like to run away from numbers, but I'm just telling you that sitting down to understand the data behind every of those problems will also make you know how sustainable or how meaningful some of those solutions are, right? So you don't just see someone just advertising that in our organization, in our PR firm, so we do this, we do this, we do that, and you just think, okay, this is a quick initiative. And I know Mr. Innocent can say, remember this far back 2, 3, 4 years ago, traveled down to a particular community and we're supposed to tell a solution story there. After we traveled and traveled and traveled, we still had series of interviews because what we got even from the field down to the telephone was almost not adding up, right? And we couldn't just do away with the story. So we had to like call. It took time, we traveled down, came back, we still continued the call until we saw that all the pieces merged up at one point, right? So I think that's like everything I would probably want to say. I know I'm not used to talking too much. Oh, okay. Probably the last thing I probably want to add is something I would like to do in DataFi. Like I said, data don't exist on their own, right? So let's take, for instance, we create what we call event diagram across a particular issue. So who are the like 3 bodies that are interacting to solve that, or who are the 3 bodies that are primarily interacting with that particular issue? So let's take, for instance, in the sense of accountability, there's the part of government, there's the part of, you can put business or put the law or put anything around that. Well, the government and the legislation and the likes are one. Business, that is private, public enterprises and the likes, and the citizen, right? You can also put the media in one point of the business. So if these are 3 people that organize or interact with data or interact with a particular issue, is there a way that these sections, in a way, clock in such that every time the government has to initiate a policy, there's an effect on both the business and both the citizen? Or anytime the citizen has to go on rampage, like the NSAS, right? The business feel the heat. It's not only the government that feels the heat. Only time the business decides that, okay, we are shutting down airports, we are going on strike, we are not teaching, right? Or academic institutions decide we are not teaching. There are also 2 persons that also feel that heat, right? So it goes around to how we also see, or how we want to either interpret data or interpret the aspect of solution journalism, right? That when there is an issue, right, who are the primary, should I say, beneficiaries or respondents, or what we like to call primary sources that interact with that particular issue. So there's already a problem of maternal mortality. Yesterday was World Malaria Day. There's already a problem of World Malaria Day in Nigeria. What are the 3 steps or 3 persons that by default that particular issue will touch? We know that the citizen part of it, right? Are there stories that we can drive from that angle? But in as much as we're driving stories from that angle, right, is there a government role to also play in that? Or is there a government policy that is probably not working, or that is probably not being effective, that is making that issue materialize or get bigger than what we even expected to be? Or is there an institutional part of it where things like adequate PHC or adequate drugs or vaccination are not even functional, or are not even working very hard, right? That can also create a problem for the citizens who are the major impact. It's just how we like to see things. So it goes down to every aspect, and we always don't always teach this only in the form of accountability, but also teach this that reflects to every aspect of how we either write a story, see data story, or even try to report any issue. I think that's like for my end. I know I still have like about 10 minutes to go. I'm going to bring in my colleague very soon, but quickly, if we have any question, I'm almost very grateful because our speakers are still online. So if you have any questions, just use the chat box, then we can now start treating them. Paul, please signify if you're actually very ready for us so that we can go. Okay, Mr. Chief, are there any tips to accessing actual release of fund from budget, the actual release of fund, I find that allocation is not enough because it does not guarantee that they will release the fund. So I know about GovSpend, but so GovSpend, so the primary thing is GovSpend feeds their data from Nucopo, right? Nucopo is like the open contracting portal, but Nucopo is so hard to sift data from, right? So two ways is to use GovSpend. GovSpend just created it's an API key that anytime they upload data from Nucopo, it just directly shows on GovSpend. So GovSpend is one way. Then there's also the implementation reports that are also released by states to show how much of those funds have been given, right? There was sometimes last year when I was working in my previous institution that NIMET began to predict that there's going to be flood, there's going to be flood. Every journalist has reported there's going to be flood. Then every journalist started waiting for when the flood will happen. And I'm also sure that solutions journalists are going to be waiting for when the flood happens, when the problem comes, right? Who are the initiatives that are going to come and help us so that we all begin to pick it? The climate journalists are going to be waiting for how can we say that this connects to every climate crisis and Nigeria is not prepared. All I just decided to do was just go, now that they have predicted that there's going to be flooding, are there allocations in the budget that helps to handle this particular flood, that helps to handle this particular issue? When I did that story, I discovered that from my analysis, at the end of the day, I think it was less than 10 states that actually made special allocation that, okay, in case there's going to be flood, there's a money to deal with it. So already more than 26 states are already vulnerable, right? So if I want to start reporting any story or any solution from that angle, right, I can almost think of 15 solution stories because I already know the states that are already victim, right? If the flood that happened that was, I think, 2023, the flood that happened in that 2023, I can almost think of 10, 15 social stories because I'm prepared with the problem. I already know where the problems were going to happen. So I'm just in the lookout to see if there are initiatives in those various states that are helping those particular problems. So I think that's one of the things that we probably need to learn as social writers is the fact that you can always pre-plan your should I use the word pre-plan? Yeah. Pre-plan your social stories because you already know that because you had already looked at data to establish that there's in the next couple of weeks, in the next couple of months, this is going to happen. So, like I said, to answer your question, sir, there is aside the GovSpend, which shows the financial output, there's also the implementation reports that is released by both the federal government and the states that also answers this question to see the total amount in percentage. In fact, that gives you a percentage. So if we are releasing 1 billion, out of that 1 billion, how many percent has been released, right? That also gives percentage breakdown, and that will happen. Any other question? Any other question? Please feel free to just. Thank you very much, sir. Feel free to ask your question. Please drop your question. So, yeah, speakers can ask questions. Yeah, speakers can ask questions. But I mean, I can throw the question back to you too at one point. Okay. So feel free to ask your question. Paul, if you are ready, Paul is going to run us through some things that we do in Decafide, especially that regards to our products. In the next 10 minutes, he's going to do that and help us launch it. Someone said, if I have a pitch, where can I submit it for consideration? Because I've been attending more social stories, but I'm yet to produce a single one. So I know, and this is not freebie, but I know that Prime Progress receives pitch a lot. I know Nigerian Health also fund stories. At least I've been a beneficiary of two of them. So I know this. I know they used to do. I think they still do. So you can always mail them. Go to their website. You always find their mail. I know that Prime Progress is, I think, editor at primeprogress.ng or .com. I don't have, but you find that on their website. The same goes to Nigerian Health. Hit them a mail, and I think they would respond to you. But I think one of the things that we fail to do is that when we just hit the mail, we just say, I have a story or I have a pitch. Just write the pitch, right? And make sure and just send it to them. When they consider you, they just really back to you. Okay, so Paul, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kenny. Please, can you confirm if you can
Yeah.
hear me? Okay, thank you so much. And thank you once again, everyone that has been listening to the training so far. So as Kenny mentioned, I'll be showing us some of our products that we have here at DataFact. First, I would like to start with our program. We have a data management and analytics beginner course that we have here at DataFact Academy. And the registration link is here on the screen, but we'll drop it on the chat box as well so that you can click and then register. Aside from this, we have our data collection solution that we call GoLocal. So GoLocal is our highly localized AI-powered data collection platform. And what does GoLocal do? GoLocal collects data, right? It provides real-time, highly localized, geolocation-enriched insight and analytics to power businesses, government, and development organizations. And as the two previous speakers or trainers now had mentioned during their presentation, they talk about the importance of the data, right? In solution journalism, data is important, and how you get your data is also important. Yes, there is the secondary data that you can get from Nocopo, like Kenny mentioned, but then there is still the primary data. Before you start any solution initiative, right, you have to assess what happens, right, or what's going on in that particular location. So this is where GoLocal comes in. And I believe if we have journalists and researchers on the call, they would definitely understand the stress and the cost of traditional data collection process. So you know that SMEs, businesses, governments, development organizations, journalists, they struggle to collect accurate and reliable data. If you have to travel to a particular location to collect data, it's a struggle to collect the accurate and the real-time data. And as well, the traditional method of collecting data, having to travel down there, speak to fixers in that particular location, is slow and unreliable. They might decide to tell you what they want and not the actual data that you need. And at the same time, the traditional data collection process is capital intensive. You have to make a trip there if you are going there physically. And if you're not going there physically, you have to pay a fixer to do the job for you. Now, this is where GoLocal comes in. GoLocal streamlines the data collection process for you. From your mobile phone, you can collect data from anywhere across Nigeria. All you just have to do is set up the campaign on the app, the questions you need the data for, the kind of data you need, if you need video, if you need audio recordings, if you need pictures of the particular location or the event that is going on in that place. Just set up the campaign on GoLocal and you deploy GoLocal. We have data collectors across the 774 local governments in Nigeria. That means we have GoLocal in almost every community across the country. So you can be rest assured that wherever you need to collect data from, maybe it's in Lagos State, maybe it's in Kano or Kebbi, like Kenny was discussing earlier, you can deploy GoLocal and we have data collectors that will collect data for you. And the best part is on GoLocal, you can validate the data they've collected for you. So now I would like us to go to the website, which is www.golocal.com, and check it out. And then in terms of partnership, earlier this week, GoLocal partnered with Meta, which is the parent company of Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. And then the partnership with Meta is for us to support them in their African language technology project to collect data on 4 African languages. So this is a partnership that we announced earlier this week, and we'll be working on this project later on this year. So right now, I would like you to go to www.golocal.io and register and then check it out yourself. So, but before we do that, I would like to show you what the registration process looks like. And I would appreciate if you can follow along as I'm sharing my screen to show you how to do that. So now I'll stop sharing my screen and I'll share my other screen so that you can see and follow along through the process. Okay, so can someone please confirm they can see my screen?
No, your screen is not showing.
The screen is not showing yet. All right, so you're good to go. Oh, you're good to go. Screen is perfect.
Okay, thank you. So I believe we are all on www.golocal.io right now. So just go to Google or whatever browser you're using and type www.golocal.io. And then on the website, you see the Get Started button here, right from the top here. And then once you click it, you register your details. So for me, I'll start with my name here. So I believe we are all following along. And then I'll input my email. Okay, and then you select your country as Nigeria, input your password. You can have 4, 5, for example. So, and then you click sign up. But you can also use the sign up with Google option right here. And then that one is very fast. All you just have to do is click this button and then you're registered. So you can see my screen is currently loading. Okay, so it's saying my password must contain a symbol. So as you can see, I'm adding symbol to the password. Okay, uppercase. All right, so now we are in. So as you can see, it says enter your verification code sent to my email. So now I'll go to my email and then I'll get the verification code. So if you're following, you should have received your verification code as well. So I'll copy my verification code here and then I'll paste it here. And now the question is, what is your primary goal on GoLocal? Are you an organization or a researcher that you want to collect data? Or are you a participant or a data collector? You want to collect data for organizations or researchers and you get paid for it. So I'll choose N by participating in surveys, and then I'll have some questions. So here I would add a random date here, just because of our time, just add 5, maybe add 12, and then select my gender, male, religion, Let's just choose Christianity, and then let's choose one here. And then my language, English. And if you speak more than one language, you can add them here. So I believe we're all following along. So now you'll be asked to update your location. So just click update location. And then you see the pop-up from your browser. You click allow. So let me try that again. So please feel free to drop your questions in the chat box if you're experiencing any challenges or issues as you are doing this. Okay, I can see we have some questions in the chat box. So while my location is still being updated, let me check the chat box. Someone said, is GoLocal free? No mention of pricing. Yes, so for now, GoLocal is free for you to participate or to collect data. So you can sign up as I'm doing it. As you can see from my screen, there was no part where I was asked to add payment or add my card. So everything is free. You sign up, you input your email, you get verification code in your email, and then you register. Okay, I can't see any more questions on GoLocal. But please, if you have questions, feel free to ask. Okay, I guess my network. Let me start this process again. Earlier. So once again, I believe you're all following along, and let me know if you've been able to register or if you're experiencing issues from your hand. Okay, so I have a question saying, so when I deploy research on the platform, it gets sent to actual people who meet the criteria that I'm researching into. Absolutely. When you deploy your research or a survey on the platform, and then you tag the location for that research. So take, for example, you want people in Abuja only to attempt or to collect data for you. When you deploy that survey, the people in Abuja are the only ones that will see that survey, right? Anybody outside of Abuja would not be able to see or attempt or contribute to that survey. So when you tag your campaign or your research now with a particular location, you can add a local government, you can add a community, right, within any state across Nigeria. And when you have that location, the people in that location are the ones that will be able to contribute to your campaign. That means the data you are collecting or the data that they will give you will be coming from that particular location that you are researching into. So I believe I've been able to answer your question.
Well, so what I'm thinking that we can do is if you have another account that you've opened it, you can just continue with that account. I guess this location is taking time to sync with your system. So I know you've already opened it on another platform, so you can just continue with that. I mean the process. Yes, just to respond to that question, you have to pay the amount. So how we like to see it is that, let's take, for instance, you have, you're giving, I don't know why I like to restrict, I like to always define it using journalism terms. Let's say, and that's because I see how practical the tool can help. Let's say, for instance, you're giving a 300,000 Naira or 400,000 Naira grant to go to a particular state and investigate a particular issue. So how we like to see Go Local help is that 400,000 Naira will probably pay your, okay, let's say 500,000, because it might help you pay your flight fee to that state, and you just investigate what you are doing in that community and just come back, right? That's all you're just doing in that community, just with 500,000. Why can't you just use not even up to half of that money and put it on Go Local, and it will get you the same answers from different people in different community that works on that particular issue. Now you're just the only one taking 500,000 to just Plateau States to research malaria, but you can put it on Go Local, where you can deploy an action in more than 10 states. And you're probably just giving them a token to just go and do the soft investigations that they are doing, that you will still do on only those one state, around those 5 or 16 states. And you have used just one same amount to get the result for different particular states. Paul, you can continue, please.
Thank you for that. And I believe you painted the picture in the right way for journalists here to properly understand, and researchers as well. So now with the platform, as I mentioned or answered the question earlier, the tasks you see once you register and you are on the dashboard will be the tasks that are within your location, right? Because those campaigns have been tagged with a particular location. And as a contributor, the campaigns you will see on your dashboard would be the ones from your location. So I can't see more than 2 here because those other campaigns have been tagged with different location. So I'm in Abuja currently, and a campaign going on in Benin or in Lagos State won't show on my dashboard. And as you can see, we have 2 campaigns here that you can contribute to. And once you click them, you'll be able to attempt. And from here, you can see the amount that you make as a contributor from contributing to this campaign, right? And this is 500 Naira right here. And we have the other one, we have a particular price for it, and then other campaigns. So from wherever you are right now, if you log in, you'll be able to see at least some campaigns that you can contribute to as we are currently on this call. So from here, you click contribute, and once you click contribute, you'll be able to attempt the campaign. And as you can see, we have here, and then you'll be able to attempt the campaign. And once you're done, you can go back and click the second one and also attempt the campaigns. So this is how it works. And here you can come here and you will see your responses that you've done, and also your contributions, the campaigns you've contributed to, right? And here under wallet, you can see your wallet, and you can see the amount you have in your wallet balance. And then from here, you can withdraw the cash to your bank account, to your Nigerian bank account. So if you have 2,000 Naira here or 5,000 Naira here, you can click withdraw. And then from here, you'll be able to withdraw to your actual bank account. So please go to www.golocal.io and register, and then attempt the campaigns that we have here, and then make money. Thank you so much. We'll stay in touch with you. If you have any questions or if you encounter any issues, feel free to reach out to us, and we are more than happy to hear from you. Thank you. Over to you, Kende.
Yeah, thank you so much, Paul. Thank you very, very much, Paul, for that. So I mean, Go Local is one of the very nice tools, I think, that's created by DataFile Academy that helps to answer several of these questions that matters to research and research expansion, right? I want to employ you to, yeah, someone is raising up his hand. Sani, let's see if we can give you the mic to, okay. Yeah, you can speak if you want to speak. Try to request for the mic. I'm trying to. Sani, yeah, you can quickly go ahead and speak.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you very, very, very much for the impactful lectures of different type from different experts. For GoLoka, I have this is my third time attending this type of lectures on the same platform, and I've already downloaded the application on Play Store yesterday for GoLoka. So I want to confirm its authenticity. Seeing that the person presented here used Google Internet and did not use the application. Is it true that is it authentic? The
Yes.
application on Play Store is your own?
Yeah, Paul, please confirm that the Play Store application is on. At least I have the Play Store application on my own phone. So yeah,
Yes. Yes, we have the app on Google Play Store and Apple Play Store as well. So feel free to download them. As long as you see the logo and the name is from us and it is our platforms and the apps are running well. So feel free to use them. If you have any issues, you can always reach out to us. If you encounter any issues, any technical issues, we are more than happy to respond to you and look at it. Thank you. Over to you, Kenny.
Thank you
Okay.
very much.
Thank you.
Yeah. Someone is also asking if Datafy do courses. Yeah. So essentially, like I mentioned, the academy is focused at resourcing newsrooms, individual organization, academic institutions, CSOs, and the like. So yeah, all you just have to do is just send us a mail at academy.datafy. Okay, sorry, at academy@datafy.com. So I'm just going to put that in the chat box. Or let me see if I can write that on my slide here so that you can also see that. So just send us a mail. So we offer every course from data journalism to data analytics to data visualization and the likes, right? So all you just have to do is send us a mail, and I mean, we used to training individuals, training newsrooms. So if you think your newsroom is going to also learn from the whole idea of data journalism, please send us a mail. We do both in-person, virtual, and we already have pre-recorded videos in case you're not available for in-person or virtual meetings. We have pre-recorded videos in all of those courses, be it data analytics, data management, using Excel, SQL, and the likes, and other technical tools, Power BI, Tableau, and every infographics tool that you want to work on. We are open. So just send us a mail. We can come down to your newsroom, have series of sections around it, and talk to you about it. So just send us a mail and we're going to follow it. Let me also mention that this recording is also going to be available on our YouTube channel, please, so that you can you are quickly aware of it. Please go to the YouTube right now at Datafy Academy and follow us. Right. Follow us on Twitter. If you have any comments to make, any impact this training has had on you, please like and follow everything that we do. And we hope to see you by this time next month. I can't presume what we're going to teach by next month. I mean, it could be something very practical. We are trying to see how we can cover space that looks involved into climate change, practical data visualization, at least take 1 or 2 tools on practical data visualization, and see if we can also go into other aspects of reporting. So yeah, we are working towards even securing fellowships that people can come and work on gather together and just work on several data-related storytelling mechanisms as it may be. So please do well to follow us and just follow through on some of the things that we do, and so that you can stay updated. Just like we have mentioned, also try as much as possible. What about collaborative storytelling? Yes, Mr. Chibike, you should know that I'm always up for that one. If it's about collaboration, I'm always up for that one, right? So yes, we can always work together. We can always work together. I know you have my number, so we can always find a thought around that and see how we can collaborate to help to produce stories. Yeah, we can always do that. If you for the feedback, please, we're going to be sending a form out. If you can, please just click this link. Although there's a Google link that's going to be sent later, but if you can, please just click this link and help us just run your feedback as we begin to close for today. Just click the link that we've sent to everyone and just help us answer the question. Paul is already on the back end to receive your thoughts on it. So please just help us click the link, answer the questions, and drop your feedback. Thank you all for joining us. Please just before you leave, just click the link. We're done with the training. Thank you all and hope to see you next time. But please, before you leave, try to just help us with the feedback. If you are feeling it, so it's already displayed on the screen. If you are feeling it, we're going to be seeing it. So, right. So please help us feel the feedback before you leave. And thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate you joining the training. Please just take a few minutes, about 2 minutes to fill the form. It's just about 8 questions, and as you can see, we have responses coming in. So please just click the link, and then it will take you to this page where you get to just select your option. So currently, we have 5 people that have responded to this.
Yes, Sani, you can go ahead and just unmute yourself.
I can't access the link.
Okay, just check. We're sending it again back to the platform. Just check it. Thank you. Just fill the link as you take your leave. Please, I want to also mention that you can follow us on our YouTube channel and Twitter and everywhere. The links are already available on the YouTube video is going to be available 1 week time. By next week, you're going to be getting the videos available. So do well to follow us right now so that you can get notification for it when it's up. Thank you. I can see someone commenting that it was very insightful. Thank you very much. You can drop your comments too in the chat box or probably unmute yourself and just say something, but thank you very, very much. Thank you because we try to meet your needs, meet your expectation. And I think we did a good job with it. Our speakers also, thank you for staying throughout. I must say this is very, very honoring. So thank you so much for staying throughout this section and helping us to understand the interlinks that happen between data journalism and solution journalism. That's to Mr. TBK and Mr. Innocent. Thank you so, so much.
Thank you for having us. I really enjoyed my time here. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Please, before you leave, just take a minute to respond to the feedback.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you for Lauren Shaw. Please do well to just fill the link. And thank you so much. We are done with the training. We should be closing up in like a minute's time. Thank you, Isaac. Thank you, Sani. Thank you so much for joining us. So sending that link again. Isaac, I heard you said the link is not working. Thank you so much, Ayeni Maiwa. Thank you so much. And some of our colleagues, I also recognize that we have some colleagues from outside the country. So thank you so much for registering. Thank you so much for joining. Please do well to also put something online for us. Hashtag Data Fights Academy and the Data Story Lab. Just put something on us for us online and to just help spread our good works that we do. If you need any form of material, send us a mail, please. There's a WhatsApp community here. There's a WhatsApp community that you can always join, right? So if you want to join the WhatsApp community, so do well to just click the link that you're seeing right now, and it will link you directly to our WhatsApp community so that you can be getting premium content. Like I like to say, premium content. Thank you so much for participating. Thank you so much. See you next time. Thank you so much. See you next time. So do well to also join our WhatsApp community if you want to. You want to join the WhatsApp community, and we'll always put you up to date in some of the things that we do.
I can see that some people are unable to access the link. So let me stop sharing and then pull up the link so that you can type it in your browser just as we close out the meeting.
So I'm also trying to do that too from my end. Feel free to also follow us and join the WhatsApp community, please. Like we mentioned, there's a WhatsApp community. So follow us online. Please follow the YouTube. It's also important that you follow the YouTube so that you can also get access to the recording, right?
Okay, so checking the chat box now, I can see Isaac's comment saying the link is not working. Kindly resend, please. So please just go to your browser, type www.menti.com, then /ALV5JSUVRYUR. So that's the link to the feedback form. So we appreciate your feedback. This would help us tailor the next training according to your responses. Thank you. Or if you have your other device, you can also scan the QR code on the screen, and then it will take you straight to the survey. So right now we've gone beyond our time, but we're just trying to wait behind to get enough people to share their feedback, and also to mention that we'll be reaching out to you via email as well, and we'll be sending the forms to you from email. So thank you, everyone. At this point, we would like to end the meeting here, and then we'll connect again for the next Data Story Lab. Thank you. Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.